perseverance, and collaboration. Students will be active partners in authentic learning, offering voice and choice in demonstrating competency.
Yep. All right, announcements and special acknowledgements. The next school committee meeting will be held here Thursday, April 16th at 7 p.m. The school building committee will meet Thursday, April 9th in meeting room A at Town Hall, and communications will meet remotely Wednesday, April 15th at 4:30. Anything else?
I do have a number of things this evening for special acknowledgements. I want to give a shout out to Lori Benincasa, who's the assistant principal at the Paul F. Doyle Memorial School. She covered for Adam while he was out on his paternity leave. Adam came back today, and she did an absolutely outstanding job shouldering the load. Very well respected by all of the teachers and parents that I'm aware of. And just did a great job during his absence. And then I also want to recognize the Ipswich High School Theater Company that competed in the state final round of the METG Annual Festival over the weekend. They took home 3 individual awards for their production of Rinse Repeat. They earned the Excellence in Performance for the role of Joan. That was our Sophia Marshall. Excellence in Performance of the role of our ensemble, which was Ethan Desmond, Franny Barrett, Isaiah Luima, Maya Powers, Olivia Driscoll, and Campbell Garland. And then Excellence in Prop Design, Hazel Boylan and Annabelle Ma. So congratulations to that cast and crew. And then the Ipswich Performing Arts, the rest of the gang, I suppose, had a great week representing our school with pride across multiple events. Friday, our bel canto and chamber singers under the direction of Abby Frost combined to form a select choir. They performed at an excellent program at MICA, which is the Massachusetts Instrumental and Choral Conductors Association Festival, earning a silver medal. And then on Sunday, our chamber orchestra, under the direction of Mr. Coelho, performed at the MICA Festival and earned a gold medal. They now advance to the gold medal showcase on April 12th at the beautiful Groton Hill Music Center. So congratulations to all of our performers this past week.
I want to add one for String Fest. I had heard, for years from other people how phenomenal it is, and I had the chance to attend last week, and I feel like I'm part of some special club here. It is unbelievable. So huge shout out to Mrs. Scarano and to Michael Coelho. Their enthusiasm, Diana and I both were there when the kids were rehearsing in the morning, and just the energy they brought at the rehearsal. They did a workshop for the kids, for the elementary students. I can't say enough. It was really unbelievable. And just for my son, his level of enjoyment and engagement, and it's been hugely impactful for him. And you can 363 kids, I think it is. Yeah, I just can't say enough. It was so cool.
Yeah. It was an incredible evening. Glad you brought that up.
Else? All right, we're on to Superintendent's Administrative Report.
Yep. So in your folders this evening is my report. So I'm not gonna read the entire thing to you. I had a great conversation with Mariah Corso, who's a community member, very involved in Ipswich Aware and youth leadership around substance misuse. We discussed some ideas that she wanted to share about presentations to not only our students, but other schools in the area, and what speaking opportunities might be available. Rob Furtado and I continue to meet weekly to discuss school facilities. I believe his monthly report is in the folder as well. Just an update for the school committee. He's actually covering for Tom and I at the select board meeting this evening, because the select board is reviewing the capital plan for both town and school tonight. And obviously Tom and I both needed to be here, so Rob is covering for that. We've also got him starting to look at the items that are in the capital plan as proposed and starting to pull all the documents that we need in order to put bid specs together, because some of those are big-ticket items that will need some lead time to get bids out and get pricing on. Admin team, we've been starting to focus on the end-of-the-year planning in terms of events, closing out purchase orders, staffing for the end of the year. We also discussed the Student Opportunities Act plan that's also in your packets this evening, and the MCAS schedule. MCAS started this past week. Tom and I met with Alicia Merry, who's the EDP director. She's been with us for a number of years now. As you know, last year we started with the help of Ascension Church and Ipswich Aware, a teen drop-in center after school that's housed at Ascension. And so we met just to review budget stuff and look at that programming and start doing some planning for next year. They've been able to get donations and grants from local organizations to help offset the cost for that. We've been meeting with the 3 candidates for the town manager position. We had the last one yesterday. And then we're providing feedback to the select board, and I think they're going to be making their decision next Thursday, if I'm not mistaken. I talked earlier about Meg Finnegan and my meeting with her in terms of her position. She would like to continue in that position, and so there'll be more to come on that. I know that there's an executive session scheduled to discuss a potential contract with her. Tom and Tracy and I met with Maureen over at Winthrop and Cindy Welch to review the Title I program. As you know, we're experiencing some budget cuts that are expected to Title I, so we reviewed that program and just looked at what that might look like for next year. We're going back to levels that we were at 2 years ago, 3 years ago.
2 years ago.
And so we have some plans in place to manage that. We had the superintendent's roundtable last Friday. The Commissioner of Education was there. After his comments, he had to leave right away to get to Essex Tech for a different meeting. So it gave us an opportunity to debrief from his visit. I mentioned earlier, when we were at the break Saturday afternoon, I went to Boston to support our drama department. They did an incredible job competing in the festival. Staff, students, and parents were very much appreciative that I was able to attend. There were after the kids only have so much time in between the acts to get their set off and get the next one set up. So when it was over, I jumped up on stage and started breaking stuff down, and they were like, "Who's that guy?" So when Meg and others told them that the superintendent was there, they were like, "Really?" So
You were in
it was
the audience
nice.
watching, and you're like, I'm up. You
Yeah.
ran on stage, and you're like,
Yeah, because that's
for you.
because that's what it was. It was low key in the sense that, like, all the Ipswich
All hands
kids
on
were
deck.
up there, and we needed to
Yeah.
get the set off. So,
Yeah.
well, like, I can do this. So not a big
great.
deal, but it was fun. Had a great day. Just so proud of the kids and the work that they did. They worked so hard. North Shore Education Consortium meeting was this week. We approved their budget for FY27. Wellness Committee met last night to continue making some policy revisions. We started the finalist interviews today. We had one gentleman here from noontime on. He just left about 20 minutes ago. And then we have the other 2 finalists on Monday and Tuesday of next week. So during the process, they're meeting with, they're getting a tour of the building. They're being asked to read in a classroom, to interact with the kids. They're spending time with teachers, spending time with Tracy and Adam and Aaron. And then they have an hour interview with me, and then they go back and meet with the parents in the evening. So all three will be the same process. All of our, I hope I'm not stealing your thunder, but I'm going to. All of our paperwork is filed for MSBA. We just got the feasibility study contract, if you will, that we had to sign on our end first and send it back into them. So as soon as I got it, I told Tom Younger, I'll take care of getting this into DocuSign. Laura took care of it. We got it signed, got it sent right back already today. So we anticipate that we're going to be invited in, well, we'll be invited to the meeting on April 29th to be invited into feasibility stage. Now, years ago, you used to be invited to the meeting, and we'd get on a train and we went to Boston for that meeting. Now they do them over Zoom. So we anticipate being invited into the next phase. So congrats to everybody on the school building committee and the work that's been done so far. We'll just keep moving the process forward. And then I was asked to clarify, we've had some sports injuries and things. There's been some questions raised about our athletic trainer and how that works and when they need to be there and when they don't. So according to MIAA, we should employ a licensed certified athletic trainer in the district, which we do. We have a part-time athletic trainer. We must have medical coverage at all levels of football, wrestling, rugby, and at varsity ice hockey games per each individual sport rules. So we do have that. In fact, we have historically, we have a physician at all of the football games who's on the sidelines by choice, but he's been around a long time and is part of the community. Trainers are not required to be at practice. She's here during the day, and then after school, prior to practices starting, she's doing she does stretching and taping of kids' ankles and, whatever body parts they need taped for their athletic events. She does, stretching evaluations, any kind of rehab exercises and things like that prior to their daily practices. We do have medical protocols in place for when there's an injury on the field that the coaches are all versed in, in terms of calling 911 and keeping the injured player stable until EMTs or the ambulance arrives. Those are all reviewed at the beginning of each season with the coaches. We do have fully stocked medical kits that all of the coaches have, and they're restocked, as the season goes on as well. We understand that there's, we've had a couple of issues now with lacrosse, so we understand that parents are concerned about player safety, and so we're looking at what options and how we can cover more of our athletic events, because with one part-time athletic trainer, it's tough to service all of the teams that could be playing here on any given day. We also have the piece of needing to have a game official on site for our home events. So we sort of have to divide and conquer some of that, because especially with some of the issues that we've had across the league, and I've reported on this, Tom's reported it, you know, the fan behavior from students and parents is an issue. So we have to make sure that we're taking care of and have game officials on site that can help manage some of that. So we're working toward how we can cover more, whether it's going to be hiring an agency to help support that, or, you know, finding other ways to look at the schedule. But we're gonna see what we can do to make sure that we have more support at games at least, and we'll need to focus on, you know, the higher contact sports. I mean, I think there's a little bit of a difference between baseball and lacrosse, right? In terms of kids getting hit and, you know, potential for significant injury. And then we'll take a look at that, you know, over the summer and reevaluate where we need to put our personnel. We've also, you know, there was a question about AEDs. We've established tighter protocols to ensure that the AED units are placed outside, you know, before each season, each outdoor season, and then monitored throughout the season to ensure that they're there. We did have one unit stolen last year, and, you know, I don't know if they make cases that have alarms on them or what, but if it's going off and there's nobody there to hear it. But, you know, we do need to make sure that they're out there and available to people.
I do have a question. What are the tighter protocols that you're talking
So,
about?
yep, so it's the athletic trainers should be checking them pre-season to make sure that the pads are up to date, because they go out of date and they dry out. So they have to be checked to be operational. And so Tom and the athletic trainer have put stuff in, like calendar, for starters, calendar reminders to say, check the AED cabinets. You know, because we have two that are outside, and then the rest are either handheld or they're mounted in the building. So
And it says monitored throughout the season.
again, just periodic checks by the athletic director and the athletic trainer to make sure that they're still in the cabinets, because like we don't know if it was one day or a week that unit was stolen.
Right, okay.
So, and in that particular case, it was at Mile Lane, and so,
Yeah.
but that's,
Well, I guess, is there collaboration with, like, the fire department? Because I'm wondering who would check it at town hall? Like, I know they have some there.
yep,
So is there
Action,
kind of
I think Action Ambulance does them. Action does ours here
Oh, okay.
at the school, so, you know, I'm gonna guess that those are part of it.
Because it's almost like a, you know, yes, it's at the school, but it's like a town
Yeah,
thing,
yeah,
you know? and
yeah.
Different spaces are used,
Mm-hmm.
different programs
Right,
townwide,
yep,
so.
yep. I know Action Ambulance does ours. They come in and they provide the materials.
Yeah, so the AED machine wasn't where it was supposed to
was
be the
not,
other day because
no.
it had been stolen?
No. It hadn't been put out for the season yet.
Why is that?
It just wasn't. I don't know.
Yeah. So should that happen before they start the practices? Should it be out there?
Probably at the beginning of the season, yes. Like, I don't, yeah.
Yeah.
If it's personnel, we need
Yeah,
to,
no,
okay.
I was at the game on Thursday, and I think it's a good opportunity to do everything. From because it all seemed to unravel. And so I think, personally, a kid got hurt, but still, a kid got hurt. And the chaos that ensued afterwards, it was chaotic. Was, I think, an opportunity to do a deep dive on what went wrong, what could have done better, how could they prepare better, did they make the right decisions? Because I think it's always good to do an after action on something where a lot of things happen at the same time that could have been prevented. Not the injury, but everything kind of generated from that. So I'd ask if the athletic director get everybody together, do an after action review on what happened out there and what they could have done better. Because like I said, I was standing on the fence line, the fight happened right behind me. The injury was right in front of me. I mean, so I had a bird's eye view of most of it, and I'm not sure we executed as well as we probably should have.
My concern with it is, well, a couple things. Yes, of course, anytime something like this happens, it's a good opportunity to reflect, but how can we get more proactive around, protocols are established now as a reflection versus, and maybe this is part of what the athletic working group, what is that, is it a working group, will be doing, or just how to tighten things up in a way where we need to move from being reactive to proactive. So that's one piece for me. The other piece is communication. I think the first time I heard about this was from my hairdresser, and this was 2 weeks ago that this happened, and they just heard about it, and then there was an article in the newspaper yesterday. So for us as a school committee, how do we get informed internally about this kind of thing, so that when we have people in the community who are talking to us about it, that we're able to reassure people and say, yeah, we've heard about this, we've seen emails about this, I understand these things are under review and they're being addressed. So I guess I was sort of surprised that we hadn't received any information about it internally, so that we could be prepared to just know what's going on. That felt wild to me, but that's how.
Okay.
More important than that, to amend the procedures.
Yeah.
Let's make sure we're following the
Right.
ones that we're
Yeah.
legally
Yeah.
obliged to follow.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Historically, Haley, I don't think I've ever reported any athletic injury to the school committee. I don't know if that's something that the school committee wants me to start doing. I'll gladly report whatever, but it's not something that we've.
I apologize for the speed here. There are concerns raised here about both MIA and state regulations, not just this specific injury, that I think rise to the level of the school committee, that would be appropriate. Should we have a similar incident in the school, something safety related, which we've had before, that comes here, and so that would be, I believe that would be, should also be on par with that.
Yeah, I think again, I feel like I'm always the procedure, policy, like, in terms of like not having an AED, that kind of thing where, okay, this is a serious matter, we're addressing it, or, that just so that we're informed, and it's not, specific to, student information or personnel information, just high level understanding, Can I ask a question though about it says that coaches or training, where are we? So if trainers aren't there in terms of who steps in, the coaches would be expected in a case like that to hold down the fort until EMTs or.
Yeah, as it would be at any practice. We don't have anybody at every practice of every athletic event. So anytime anybody gets hurt, if it was something that required assistance, 911 will be called.
So again, my point of reference for being informed on this is the Ipswich local newspaper that said it was a scrimmage that was scheduled on a calendar. So that, is that normally
Scrimmage, yeah.
different than how practice would be?
Scrimmage is considered a practice, and it was not required that we had a trainer there.
The trainer's part-time, you said? So I guess if there's no other scheduling conflict, what, does the trainer, is it an hourly wage or is it already charted out? Because I'm just wondering if there's no game and there's a scrimmage, why wouldn't the trainer?
There's a certain number of hours a week
Okay.
that they work.
You mentioned the increasing coverage, so a little bit to that point. I think there aren't many days over the course of the season where we've got multiple locations to cover. I think to increase coverage by a trainer for as many events as we possibly can get to your point, sort of working towards that in general makes sense, particularly to help address some of the concerns that we are all hearing from the community. It's only goodness. There's no harm by having somebody there. I was thinking about the cost piece of it as well. I know you said you're working on it a little bit more. I think that's great as you understand where might we not have coverage, or if there's any cost concerns. We actually have budget next week. We can quickly talk about it there. We're on track to give back money into the stabilization, and so if that ever became an issue, we wouldn't want, I'll speak for myself, I wouldn't want that to be a hurdle. Let's certainly bring that here so we can move past it as well. I think that would go a long way, and to your point, especially, let's see what that looks like for the rest of this spring, once we put that in place, and then evaluate what do we need. The fall versus winter versus spring seasons are certainly very different. Get that in place for the spring, and then let's figure out what we do for next year. I think that's the first start. And then you mentioned a little bit of the investigation still going on. The rigor around, I think what everybody's bringing up, the policies, making sure things are there, are certainly warranted. One of the things that's come up here, I think also to address a little bit what I'm hearing around the room, is we've had other similar things, other safety or health related. We've made it a regular item in your superintendent report for a couple weeks just to check in, say, here's the progress, here's where we're going, here's the things we put in place, this is better, this, we're not seeing it, where you need to make a change. I think that'd be helpful for us, and then also for the community to regularly hear, we're still we're taking steps to continue to improve on what you found. I think would be helpful as well.
Okay.
Any other questions directed on to subcommittee liaison reports? Yes, I think nobody's met that we're not hearing from later. All right, we're gonna keep rolling.
Can I just super quick on budget? We haven't met. The town audit continues to get pushed back, so we don't have a date for it. It was supposed to be next week. It still hasn't been rescheduled.
Why is it getting moved? I'm just curious.
Scheduling conflicts with other board meetings.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right, and we do not have a high school student rep report tonight. On to the finance report.
Hello, and good evening. In your packet tonight are the monthly reports. There are 3 documents that will call your attention to. The first being the monthly general fund report, item 10A1. That is the monthly report through the end of March. The budget continues to perform as anticipated. You'll see we have just completed, we are now, I guess we're in the final quarter of the year, right? So we've completed, 8 months, and we're into that. So we've expended 75% of the budget. Which is pretty much right on par. There aren't anything, which is probably some good news. There isn't anything in particular to call your attention to this evening. Certainly, if the committee has questions now or at any time, we can certainly address those. Or I would also think, Sasha, this is probably the time for me to make some, some quarter report, the final quarter reporting, as I've already begun to produce, end-of-year balances for what we would anticipate for end of April, end of May, and then closing out. So that, I think, is well-placed at the subcommittee, if that makes sense.
That's terrific, yeah, perfect.
The other monthly report you have is the revolving gift and stabilization funds through reconciled through the end of the month, the end of March. There also isn't any particular things to report there. I would anticipate by the end of April, we'll see another payment, a couple of state payments in, which we should see a boost in both school choice and circuit breaker, and school food service, which are the three largest payments we get from state receipts.
Are you precluded from withdrawing from the food service, like we talked about for next year, because you need to make a job description change?
We do. Yeah. That is part of the budget expectation. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. I was just curious if you could start early, but it sounds like not.
Well, we haven't had those individuals really performing, well, we probably shouldn't start early.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I mean, I understand being conservative. I'm just trying to think if there's additional money we can
Right.
take this year because of how high that balance is. Okay.
And the other, the third report is the approval of warrants for vouchers and bills. I was not able to, the busyness of last month in budget exercises, I did not have a end of February report for you. So the month that you, the report you have this evening is both February and March for vouchers and bills. You see the top half of that, first five rows are the four biweekly payrolls for February and March, and lines effectively 7 through 61 really are the non-salary expenditures for February and March. There is a draft motion in the consent agenda, perhaps when you get to that, to accept this report as the protocol now, calls for.
Tom? And equity gap data report, follow-up from our last meeting.
Yeah, so last school committee meeting, I provided the equity gap data information, just in a verbal, it was a written report in your packets. And I think it was you, Diana, asked just for the actual report when we submitted it, so that is in your folder this evening. It's not the actual report. This was a template because we have to upload it into the system, into the boxes online. So this is the template that was used to upload that information. So I'd be glad to answer any questions. It's essentially the same information that I provided last week.
I'll follow up in email if that's okay. I did watch the meeting back and read the report from the last meeting because I wasn't here for it. So I was really pleased to see this. But I wondered if we could get like a little more granular in terms of like actual data for student numbers and where, there are things that are saying measurements are being put in place for this, or terms that I do have questions, but I feel like it would probably be better to start to
Yeah.
send them along.
Yeah, please do.
Okay.
Yep.
But thank you very much for this. It's helpful to see.
Others? Okay. We're on a potential revote of the FY '27 stabilization fund withdrawal amount.
Can we move this one down to after the other financial ones are, they're all information or discussion related to the overall budget? We hold the vote, the revote till after those?
I'm comfortable with that. Any objections? So you want to do this one when? exactly?
After 11E,
Give me the title.
Bethany's category allocation vote, including discussion about an IEF proposal.
Okay, so literally
Cover the next three,
the last one. Okay.
and then do this before we do goals and warrant article.
Okay. All right, so that brings us to budget process debrief. The way I'd like to do this is, let's start with what went well. We'll go member by member, let everybody speak once before somebody speaks for a second time, and then we'll go around, see what we could improve on, or what we hope for next year. All right, so what went well? Do you want to start, or does anybody want to start?
One went well. No, I'd rather have somebody else start. I just focused on suggestions.
Okay. Does anybody have any comments about what went well?
End result, I was happy with end result.
Okay. I will say, I had two things I wanted to call out that I thought went better this year. One was there was more consistency between, this is something that we talked about, between the schools when they presented, like, this similar format that all the schools use. I thought that was helpful to understand the information. And I also thought, I've talked about this before, but that Sasha and the team did well, presenting to the FinCom and kind of keeping on topic and understanding. I think it really tied the budget to our values.
That is true.
Ways. Okay. Everybody seems anxious on what we can improve on. Do you want to start this? or
Sure.
somebody else? Okay.
Yes, I'm happy to start. I think one of the things that, that I had asked about, we would still like to receive it, is the staff feedback, or the staff suggestions on budget. We're going to get a summary of that. For moving forward, because I know there was a concern about wording, like the wording that was presented in the survey, that prevented us from seeing the actual raw data. Is there a way to change that, or is that just something that should not be?
It's
Public.
personnel, it's
Okay.
specific personnel.
Okay, so that's not something that we should see. But yeah, to have that summary given to us when the budget is presented. Let's see. For when the principals make, the things that they need to cut, prioritize them. I think we had talked about that. Like, for instance, like the math course versus the health course. This was priority 1, and then priority 2 would be the health. So we have an idea of like, okay, if we are able to save something, which is the priority per the principal. Do the principals get together to discuss?
Go ahead, go ahead, ask your question. I'm shaking my head, yes, but.
Do they get together to discuss the amounts?
Oh, yeah.
Because there was such, okay,
Yeah.
because there was, the Winthrop obviously had a different number.
Yeah, so each individual building puts their budget together, the administrators, and then they present them to Tom and I, depending on, and each building is different.
Of course.
So, over the last couple of years, for example, we've made significant reductions to the middle school budget in terms of staffing. We've greatly reduced staffing at the middle school over the last 3 or 4 years. So this year, there weren't many reductions in terms of staffing at the middle school. Whereas in other buildings, we haven't really touched a whole lot in their buildings. And so we knew that we needed to get to a number, and so we look at the whole system. Each building is billing their budgets individually, but then we're sitting down as an admin team for weeks on end, saying, we've got to see if we can tighten this up anymore. Is there anything more you can do?
Yeah.
But there comes a point where there's a floor where you can't cut anymore, or it's going to be very difficult to cut.
Sure. Okay. Yeah, and I know there's like a budget, the first budget that you guys do, you tell us, and you say, we started at this, and then we really cut some more. I'd kind of be interested to see kind of what that looked like. The first go-around, before the second one that you've cut even more. Not this year, I'm just saying.
No, I'm just trying to
kinda curious.
visualize what that might look like.
Yeah, maybe it would be too complicated.
Two
But I
budget
just kind of,
presentations?
no,
and
no, no,
Before and after?
no.
What we've done in subcommittee, what we do in subcommittee is we're setting a target number based off the override calculator, so we're looking multiple years out.
Oh, okay.
And I say this because it might be helpful for context. So we're not starting, the admin team doesn't show up with, here's some potential cuts. Like this year, we set a number, this year we had a target of 42 million based on what we could fund for this year, keep a balance in the stabilization of the override fund, and make our numbers for future years out. So that's what they're starting with, right? And that's why they're coming down, because level service would have been,
I see.
I forget, a million something higher. So kind of your point of like, what are they starting with, and what do they come down to? What they're actually starting with is the number that we're setting, which is try to find reductions that fit into this. And then, so that's kind of the first one. So you're seeing, is their response to our suggestion for cuts?
Okay.
So I know I'm at the end of the table, but this has been the thing that I've been really uncomfortable with for the entire budget cycle. Since the first budget presentation I sat into. Point is dead on. The cost centers submitted a budget of what they thought in their best interest required. And that number was pretty significant, and you highlighted it in your presentation, that it was here, we got down here. The point is, what do they want that they didn't get? And it's not two budgets, it's literally the unfunded requirement lines below. Because at some point, so when you go back, go, hey, whatever, it was 47 to 41, you go, hey, 41 is what you got to fit in. They went in and lined out stuff initially, they said they need.
Right.
And the budget committee, when we met, or the finance committee, when we met with them, asked the question that I knew they were going to ask. What if we got another 60,000 into the system? Well, okay, what's the next priority that they had to give up? And I think that's helpful as we go into the iterative process. And when you and I had our first meeting, my concern is that Winthrop has unfunded requirements. Doyon has the middle school, high school. Who prioritizes those? Who says that Winthrop's number one unfunded requirement is more important than there's got to be a meeting where they look at everything that didn't get funded and then figure out if money drops from the town, we can afford to bring this thing back in. Or if money shrinks, here's the first on the cut line. So it's not discovery learning every time we go back into a budget hearing if the number changes that we're dealing with. That's what I would like to see next year, is what were the unfunded line numbers
Right.
that they started with, but then constrained themselves.
Can I just
Yeah, please.
I think there's a misunderstanding of, if we have, your example, if we have an additional 60,000, what else can we fund? We're heading into a $15 million override, which is unsustainable. So if we were to have an extra 60,000, we're using that 60 to bring down the 15 million.
Maybe you're making an assumption that the thing that, you're making an assumption, and that assumption is that the town, our constituents, don't think that that 60,000 is better spent on an unfunded line number in their budget than it is buying down the override. And I think we have a responsibility to our constituents to see what that is, to make an informed decision on whether we increase the override or we fund that critical line number. Because at some point, getting to zero growth, level service, whatever that number is, we're going to cut bone.
Yeah.
And at that point, it's going to have ramifications. I think when we look at what the administrator said they needed, and then under budgetary constraints, what they thought they could get, we as a school committee should have insight into what those things are that they weren't able to bring on board because of money. I'm not saying that it's gonna change the decision, change the calculus, but I think for us to see it, it avoids Tom going, well, I didn't know we could bring somebody, you know, that, there's a, John, I'm sorry, I didn't say Tom, I meant John.
If we're heading in the direction of we need to make cuts, and not just individual ones, but go into major changes in the education plan, I don't understand why we then have a conversation of what might we add.
Well, the conversation would be just like what we had. We're gonna get rid of PE or health teachers because the PE teachers can cover.
Yeah.
Well, when you talk to, see Tom again?
John?
John said, well, shoot, we had a big conversation about bringing the health teacher back on. I said, really, I needed a math teacher.
Yeah.
That's where that line number of where his decision, his mind was when he made the decisions, that's the visibility we didn't have. And so we had a full conversation about a health teacher when John's sitting there going, well, I really want a math teacher. But if we had seen where the order of his cuts were into his mindset, then it's a much more effective process as we start to go into the hard conversations with him. That's
So
my
we can,
point.
I agree
we can
with that.
provide that list.
Yeah, it's not the mechanics, with the adds back, so 277,000 that was added back,
Right.
that's 2.9 million added to the next override.
Understood.
That's the conversation here of, can we go from a 15 to a $17.9 million override
Right.
based on those ads? And so I think that's, for me, is those individual ones, like, the mechanics, sure, that's no problem, but we're not just talking about 200, it's much bigger ramifications because of the multi-year impact.
Yeah, understood.
And so I don't know how we're in a place with this type of a deficit that we could be considering adding things back. I understand the mechanics of getting the list, but
Well, it
That's
could be
what's-
offsetting, it could be one for one, it could be a broader discussion as we drill into it, but just to eliminate it out of hand, I think is a mistake.
Yeah,
So
I
I'd
think,
like,
yep.
got you. Sasha, maybe you can do some modeling, maybe it's the override calculator, and I want to finish your list.
Okay, I'm almost done.
So if you have more to say on that, but
Yeah, yes.
finish
I-
up yours and we'll keep working.
Yeah.
Okay.
I do think we, as a school committee, need to be advocates for the courses that the students need, you know, and to hear the impact statement from the principal of, you know, this is, I said this can be cut, but this is what's going to happen. This is what the students are going to miss out on if we don't have that. I think that's super important because, yes, obviously it costs money and this is something that we need all the taxpayers to go in on, say, yeah, this is worth it. And we need to advocate for our students to the taxpayers and say, this is important. Yes, it costs this much money, but this is our job to stand up for the students and say, this is what we need to pay for. So I think that's a mindset that we have to hold close, as far as I'm concerned. Just going back to the final two things, principals should meet, and I'm assuming they would have, but to meet with their staff, I know there's a survey, but just to have a live person discussion about their ideas. And it doesn't seem, based on the confusion, it doesn't seem like that necessarily happened. So I think that would have a more formal process between the principal. And they would be just suggestions from the staff, obviously, it's the principals. Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Thank you. All right, we'll keep going in order. Haley, on the next.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I think I understand the point as well in terms of it's important for us to be informed about the implications or ramifications, I guess, of the cuts, right? And so I think it's less about what could we possibly add back if we could, great, but understanding that we're going to be cutting and that's the reality. What are the ramifications? Like hearing John speak specifically to the math position and the course that meant for personal finance. We all understand what that would mean for our students. And so that kind of information, just to really understand the the impact to students, I think is really important. I think sort of the higher level, where things shook out for me was, again, I think we fell into that like death by 1,000 cuts term, which, if we can get into those strategic conversations where we're having the task forces around, looking at, raising athletic fees potentially, grade level configuration, district-wide special ed low teaching model, all of those things where if we're able to really look strategically and say, here's how we can make bigger adjustments. And we've done all we can at that level. And here's what's left. This is why these cuts are sort of necessary at that point, because we've already done everything else that we can across the board. So I think in budget subcommittee, there have been a number of conversations about what those things are. I just named a couple because those were things that came up this budget season. But if we is there a comprehensive sort of list somewhere that is like, here's what those things are?
I'm smiling because our budget subcommittee actually has one scheduled for next week to talk about.
Next week, we're
grade
doing, this is the
configuration.
first one on configuration. And so I just say that, and they'll like, yes,
Yeah.
immediately.
Yeah.
And your point of the list, I have that, I can email it to everybody right after
Okay,
this.
yeah, that would be helpful to see.
Yeah.
Any others, Haley? Anything else on the budget?
I think the piece on communication, so again, using John as the example where, the administrators were here for the initial presentation. We had a number of other meetings, and then in that final meeting, John obviously expressed frustration and sort of like, I didn't even know something else was on the table. So I guess just, it would be, and we don't need to do this now, but at some point to have an understanding of sort of what the process is for when you guys are going back to the table, what are the cadence of meetings when, we're meeting in between, are you guys going back and meeting in terms of, again, coming at that list of prioritization? Okay, so things are shifting, we got more information from the town, more money's coming back, or health insurance. I mean, I don't know how normal that is to have that up and down like that, but yeah, so, I mean, I think that it felt like there was clearly a disconnect in communication in terms of like what was happening certainly in public meetings here, and then having that level of surprise from John. So what can we do better, I think, around that kind of thing? And certainly for us as a group, I think this has already been expressed, but to be able to sort of have predictability to some degree, and some of these things we were at the mercy, again, of things we didn't have control over. But the things we do in terms of rolling out a meeting calendar, when we're able to meet, how the mechanics of us talking, like we were not set up for success in terms of not having the group at the table for pivotal, important conversations. We can't have that happen, because it made an already challenging process that much harder. So, yeah, I think that's it for me.
I just had one. I put a file in your folder. It's 11C. This was something that came up quite a bit with Finance Committee, and then during the meetings that I wasn't able to attend the final two, I heard this come up, and just some clarification around the total cost of funding the schools, and then the three different funding categories. So for this year's budget on page 1, what is commonly referred to as sort of the shorthand of it that's in the budget book is the stabilization plus the town contribution. The revolving accounts are subtracted out of there. So this year's budget in the budget book is listed as 41 million. The total cost of operating the school is 44.9 million. The funds for that comes from three places. The town contribution, which, to your point, changes a little bit as we move through the budget cycle. So 60,000 here, 100,000 there, but that's generally pretty close. The revolving accounts are mostly consistent. I think each year, particularly Tom, you've been really smart about where might there be other opportunities. So that has grown a little bit. And when the revolving account grows, like this year, we also took from, we also have the additional source from the FEFI. So when that grows, that means it helps reduce the amount that we pull from stabilization. And so as small as a stabilization number can be, the better. That stabilization is sitting in a fund from the last override, but we have to go to town meeting each year to ask for that, explicitly ask for that money as part of our budgeting process. So that's why I called that out, just to make sure. We generally talk about the budget, and it's sometimes just kind of talked about broadly. We explicitly have to ask for approval for two things. One is the total dollar amount, and then the second is stabilization. The note I included in here came up a little bit, but over the course of this year, but just moving forward, keeping an eye on those revolving accounts. They're more than just revolving accounts, but, and they're all summarized in the budget book. But keeping an eye on those, athletics is probably the best example, but there's others where those funds are starting to deplete. So in the coming years, we're going to start to go in the other direction, where instead of that revolving account number, that 3.5 million, it's gotten bigger for the last few years, which is good for us because it helps keep the stabilization number down. It's going to start to go in the other direction, where it's going to start to get smaller, which means the number we draw from stabilization is going to start to get bigger. And then just on page 2, I just want to point out, because this is what I heard in some of the conversation. In the change from the original February 4th to the voted March 5th budget, the dollar amount for stabilization went down. So instead of us withdrawing 1.6, we're withdrawing 1.1, which is terrific. The total overall cost, and so the amount to spend the school went up, not down. So I think that's an important one, because it going up still impacts the amount that we withdraw from stabilization. So it went down from 1.6 to 1.1, but it could have gone down further. And so that's the other important piece that I just want to make sure to call out. So when going forward in future years, those are the 4 key numbers to pay attention to. What are we getting from the town? What's the total cost for the school? What do we take from the revolving, and then what's left over is how much we have to withdraw from stabilization. And that's the last number. We want that to be as small as possible. I just thought this would be helpful as we move into future years. We very quickly jump into individual line items or programs or things like that. This is just a good place for us to anchor back to of overall, how do we feel about the total spend? So I thought this would be helpful. The formatting wasn't great, so I put this in here as a PDF, but the file with the details, we'll put in the main folder we have with the override calculator, so we can easily reference it for future years as well.
All right, Paul?
I've already reinforced Jen's point. I just, Haley brought up something that I think is that, my first time, I think my very first meeting was so there's briefness. And it was a pretty benign briefing. Everything was good to go. They were just going to lose these, few things. And it would have been helpful, especially seeing the reaction about the math teacher, that the impact of the loss of that position spelled out in the brief. Because it just said, we're not going to fund a math teacher.
Right.
And, okay, didn't seem like it was that big of a deal until it was. And so I think having the impact, the risk to not funding that is an important standalone slide. Here's the things that we're not funding, and here's the risk. I see the smile, so you must do that somewhere, or you don't think it's...
No, you're spot on. The presentation that was given by the administrators this year was drastically different than we've ever done before. We scaled them way back this year, in part by design in conversations with the budget subcommittee. And I think, and my comment was going to be later, I think a lot of the questions that came up after the fact would have been answered in an initial presentation as we've done them in the past.
The
We have the stuff.
budget book didn't change.
The budget-
We just spent less time on the upfront charts. I'm not,
Well, even
Impact was, the impact was missing, so the budget book won't have impact, and the slides didn't. And so that's the part that,
slides were cut.
as a decision maker, which this body is.
yeah, well, that's what, so I agree with you. I just want to that's never been in there. So if that's something that's a new ask, I don't mind it. I'm just, in previous years, it's always been that one line of this is increasing or this is decreasing. So if you're looking for more, I just want to, I just
so
clarify that because
I guess
that's
what
a new ad, which is
it-
fine.
It goes part and parcel with the other point about
Yeah.
the unfunded stuff, right? Because if the custodians of the mission set teach the kids are saying, I can do, if pushed into a corner with this budget, here's how I'm gonna get after it. And they did some really great work. I was really impressed. But here's the risk I'm assuming, or actually the kids. I'm assuming on behalf of your children. This, and this, and literally it was, we're gonna combine health and PE, no issues with that. We're gonna lose a math teacher, I mean, there was no issues with anything, but there clearly was. And so it's a simple one slider. We're gonna reduce by 1 FTE in math. Impact. We'll no longer be able to offer this, and this. And I'm still unconvinced that the PE teachers gave an enthusiastic thumbs up that they could teach health courses, and I'm not sure that's right. But that's the risk benefit of that we should see. And it's not that hard to do, because obviously he went through that risk calculus when he was making that decision. And then that helps explain why, right? And it also, when the parents look at it and go, wait a second, I don't like that at all. And, you know, they come back and we hear it through all of our channels, and we can go back and go, hey, I'm not sure that this risk is worth taking. Can we revisit this and maybe look at it somewhere else? So it would be helpful. I think we need to have that input into our budget process next year. But again, I was thoroughly impressed with the numbers. Nobody was personally wed to anything in the budget. There was a lot of flexibility and initiative. It's everything you would hope in a collaborative environment, so I appreciated that as well.
I forgot something. This occurred to me, the FinCom presentation. If there would be any room for discussion for when the administrators make that initial presentation, for us to invite either the select board and or FinCom to that, because so much of what they spend their time on are things that the administrators are already doing, and just to be respectful of their time, right? I mean, I understand things shift from that to some degree, but many of the things that FinCom added are related to this, right? Direct impact that they care about too, that we should all care about. And so I wonder if, out of respect for the administrators' time, that we could make some adjustment around that. Just order of like when things are presented or how we could.
They've been invited in the past and they like their own.
This year we invited them, we sent them the recordings to the two key meetings that would be helpful. And as soon as the initial budget was published, which we knew would be essentially 99% the same, that was shared right away in February 4th. So we did have that stuff early. I think, point taken.
Yeah.
And keep pushing on it for next year of how do we get better at it. I thought this year was way better than last year. Last year was better than the year before, and so
The FinCom
keep working it.
presentation.
Yeah. The reviews. So I think we just keep working it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have a question. How did FinCom feel about the presentation? I mean, I know it felt very positive, but did they give any feedback on what they expected or what they received in terms of the presentation? Okay, that's good then.
I heard they were very, very happy with it.
Good, okay. Excellent. Well done.
That was the general feedback that we got.
Yeah.
Good job.
May I, Ed? Is that okay? This is incredibly helpful, information, and I think as we constantly want to get, better, we obviously need to be astutely aware of what may be lacking, or what we need to be, better at. A perspective that I would share that is, I'm sure, not lost on anyone, but is unique to this year versus the prior years, is that we're in an environment that we're talking about budget reductions. We really haven't had that in the past. So I think, Paul, to your question, which is an excellent one about risk and assessment and what's left on the cutting room floor, hasn't really been part of prior year conversations. Even just looking at the budget book, page 4, which has the 4-year history, we were looking at increases of 6.5%, 5.7%, 3%, and this year at 1.1%. This is really the first year that we're seeing and realizing actual budget cuts that are hard. So how we get better at making that presentation is exactly what we need to do, because I would speculate that next year is going to be just as difficult as this year was. So the feedback piece is, I think, incredibly important for us to get better at that, to make sure that the committee is well-informed and well-engaged. But I think that's a perspective that can't necessarily be lost. It's hard to compare it to last year or the year before or the year before, because we weren't seeing these types of reductions.
Yeah, in my last position, it was like the second or third year of reductions. And so this was a way that we could articulate impact and risk to
Sure.
our, our mission, which was educating other
Sure.
types of people, but, mission and risk to the children, right?
Sure.
And so I think, yeah, if we have to reduce, we have to reduce, but I think understanding what we're losing is important.
Oh, indeed. I think that may need to be part of of more of the front and center messaging. Because I really, I think, the message that we're getting clearly from the town side of things, or the town hall administration, is that the types of availability of town resources are going to get more constrained in the future, not less constrained. So the likelihood that we're not going to have another year with some serious and unfortunate but serious conversations about reductions is, I think, part of our reality. One of the things, just again back on page 4, which is the summary, the summary document, and maybe this is something that we should do earlier in the year. Maybe we do the presentation in chunks. But I do, from my work, and it's dated here November 11th, I produce for the superintendent and the administrative team what a level service budget looks like. Not one reduction. That's on page 4. What's the cost of doing business, just level service across board? And that was a $43.5 million budget. The principals and the administrative team then provide to Dr. Blake and myself in the middle of January what their level service plus requests are, which brought it to a $44 million budget. Then we're obviously working at all times, working with the budget subcommittee to appreciate what those expectations were, and the affordability number as it moves from town information. So I think, some of that, and maybe we can do some of that, earlier on, especially around what level service looks like, perhaps. I mean, I want to make sure, I'm looking at you, Paul, not trying to point you out, but you've made that point a couple times, which I think is a really good one. And I want to see how we can get better at that.
Yeah, I think, all of it, I think, over-communicating things is always super helpful, right? Especially in a I found that in your position, you're dealing with the numbers, you inherently understand them. But getting us to.
Well, that's a good thing.
Well,
Bonus?
But, certainly, I was just mulling over, the level service might be an antiquated term. We might never be able to achieve level service in the next few years unless something drastically changes. So it's, you always try to protect the humans first, the student-facing positions, but what has been so special about the school system, somehow you have to protect it when you just keep having less to be able to operate on. And that's why I think, to the point of going back to the finance committee or back to the town, back to, our constituents and saying, hey, listen, this is what we're losing out of the school because of where the budget situation is an important conversation to have, and not have people be surprised by it. I think that forward communication, hey, we're looking at this, and it causes a little bit of churn in the system, but sometimes that's okay, because you're not blindsiding people.
Sure.
Like, wait a second, we don't have a math program anymore? We had to get rid of math. Well, math is a bad example, probably.
Yeah.
But you know what I mean. There's
I
going to
do.
be.
Oh, no, I do.
Why aren't we offering AP courses through online and VHS? Well, we just couldn't afford it. Well, that conversation gets socialized instead of it just being a fiat. And I don't.
So one of the things that struck me in evaluating and thinking through this, and I don't mean to rationalize, But there was an authenticity to the exercise that we went through, and because I think it's fair to say, and I'm going to drag Dr. Blake into this, we can contradict me if I'm off, but we didn't anticipate the school committee wanting to reinstate things. Frankly, no, I hope I'm not off. So the first notion between the February presentation and the March or the couple presentations throughout February, and even, going back to Mr. Mitchell's, in the moment authenticity, was that when we got a bump from the town, we rightly assumed, or I think we assumed, the administration assumed, that that would be a less of a draw from stabilization and not a reinstatement of reductions. So we did not tip off Mr. Mitchell to say, oh, come up with your new list. It was pretty authentic around the table, which is how it, in some ways, should work, right? We're not trying to, Dr. Blake and I aren't trying to manipulate the game plan, and I'm not trying to rationalize. I'm just trying to put it in perspective that some of this work this year was authentic in the moment.
It doesn't sound like a defensive or rationalization of it. I think that's an accurate description of where it was, but I think the foundational assumption is one that I'm trying to challenge a little bit. And I think that if we show a prioritized, unfunded, it doesn't have to be all of them, but just the top 5 or 6 with risk associated with not funding them, and we get healthcare costs come back to us, and then that is a discussion with the risk of an increased override versus risk of not funding this position, and I think that is worthy of this body to deliberate.
I agree. Oh, yeah, no, that's a good takeaway. I'm not trying to defend the process. I'm trying to, articulate in some way what I believed happened in real time and what we were trying to react to in the course of a pretty hectic, 60 days, right?
I'll quickly add the history of it, because that's important. We did 2 years ago, begin to look at, we need to start making cuts. And then again, last year, we had 2 years where we had major healthcare increases, and we had a teacher contract negotiation that prevented us from doing it. So your point of like, this is the first year we've been able to do it, but for 3 years, we've been talking about we need to get to this point too. That's important in the context of, we're looking long range, we've been trying to get here for a little while as well.
I think having a gentle glide slope to that versus a cliff is also important, and I really think it was balanced really well. I was super impressed with everybody and just the conversations. But if we're looking to improve the process next year, and we think we're gonna kind of be sitting in this situation again, then I think there's some things that maybe we ought to do differently.
There was one other thing that occurred to me that I would have forgotten to raise, which is, I think so this has come up a couple years in a row where curriculum review cycle comes after budget. And so when the health 2 years ago was proposed, and we were like, well, what's that gonna actually look like in a schedule? And how are students gonna get to class? And how are they gonna puzzle it out? And how that worked with world language, all of that was 2 years ago. And then this year it was PE. And so I feel like I understand they have their whole process, and some of it comes from standards, new standards being rolled out and that kind of thing. But in a situation where there's going to be something like that would require sort of all of that puzzling, and they have a special meeting where just the group involved or the teachers involved in a change like that would call a meeting ahead or during budget season throughout the process where they're saying, okay, we need to think about this now, we can't wait until later because obviously the impact to student, whatever, all of that stuff. So I feel like that was one where it's like, well, this is how we do it, and it doesn't align very well, and that's just unfortunate. And I feel like instead of it being unfortunate, we can reflect on that potentially and do it a little differently.
All right, I would like to take my chance to speak. I think everybody has said the impact statement is the biggest thing that we could work on for next year, especially anticipating more cuts. And I'll take it one step further. Maybe coming up with possible, I don't know, solutions are the right word, but we landed on there's going to be a section cut at when you're up in the 5th grade. And I feel like it shouldn't be the school committee saying, well, could you do this? Could you do that? It would be great if using that as an example, principals, the admins could come and say, okay, we need to cut a section, but here's what we're gonna do to make it more doable. And I don't know what that is, that's all. You know, suggestions have been, well, do you move a teacher for a year, whatever, or do you look at co-teaching? I don't know, I don't think that's for us to decide. But for every impact statement, you know, if it's a simple, for some, maybe some reductions are more black and white, but for some that are definitely, you know, we're gonna feel a little more like, okay, this is what we're recommending, and this is how we're gonna try to decrease the impact, the negative impact to students. Let's see, next, I think, so I know Jen and I kind of independently signed up for MASC Lunch and Learn about budgets. That was inconveniently the day after we voted on our budget. But it was really helpful in understanding the process and the best practice. And I think I sent that around to everybody, the recording. But just a reminder that the school committee approves the budget at the cost center level, not at the line-by-line level. I think we need to keep that in mind next year. And then lastly, just to re-emphasize what Haley said, like, we all need to agree on a budget calendar and timeline, and we all need to stick to it and do our best to be at those meetings.
Just to your cost center comment, in the finance report that Tom shared at the top of the meeting, the cost centers are the groupings, not the individual line items. So for example, on page 1, buildings and grounds operations, that's a cost center. Was it Winthrop has individual cost centers within it? I just clarify that. I don't know that everybody's familiar with that term, that's why.
All right. Anybody else? Final comments? Okay, got more budget discussions kind of to continue. So now we're on to the override calculator review.
Yeah, updated calculators in the folder. I'll go quick unless there's questions. I left the 2 tabs in there to help understand level service versus the project cuts that we need to make. What are some of the highlights? The second tab, we're using that as our projection out to help reduce the cost. The 2 most important numbers are at the top there. So the first is that annual increase to the budget is 3%. Annual increase from the town is 2%. So we're being conservative there. That's what it was this year. And so we're just using best information to move that forward. Hopefully that number increases. But if not, you can see the next most important thing is at the bottom row. So we drain, or at the end of FY29, our stabilization balance, so I'm looking at row K16, at the end of FY29, we get down to 618,000. In FY30, we're in negative. That means we need to replenish it before FY30. We go into an override, we usually try to do it, or we did previously do it a couple years ahead of time to de-risk it. So should it not pass, gather feedback, we have 1 more year before we run out of stabilization funds completely. That happened to us previously, and it was immediately and catastrophic impact to the school.
What
So
year is that,
we
sir?
de-risked that. Is that 14? Oh, you weren't here. You were
Well, it was
14?
before I arrived, but I think it was like 2014 where the override failed, and they ended up, I just know some of the.
We immediately had
reductions,
music
but-
programs almost completely gone.
Libraries.
Libraries
were
couldn't
closed.
be staffed, so they were
World
literally
language
closing elementary schools.
Decimated, it was significant.
Yeah, cannot be understated. So so that's why I bring up the timing, that's important. We've been doing, just as a reminder, we've been doing override, or historically overrides have been 5-year overrides, so at a 5-year duration. Based on our current projections, we would get through 7 years, which is wonderful, but then you can see if you add up and get to, if you go the 5 years out, that next one would be at around 15 million. That's what we're trying to drive down. The other aspect that we began talking about at Tri-Board was instead of every 5 years, doing something like annual or every other year to help reduce that and soften the year-over-year increase and essentially soften the tax impact to the town. By doing it more frequently, you lower the number the overall tax impact, you'll lower the dollar amount, and it's a smaller increase every year instead of just a one-time major hit. So for future tri-board discussions, and we've got some time before we get there, but something just to keep on your radar.
Do you know the history of when, like, how long have we been doing the 5-year overrides?
Twice.
We've done it twice. And before that, it was like every 1 year, every couple years?
Yeah, I don't know.
I think it was 8 or 9, 14, and then 21.
So as
I always mess up the calendar.
21, I think.
But so for those three, and before that, I just don't remember.
So has the school always operated at a deficit? I guess it's
As long as I'm familiar with,
For a few
yeah.
years. Yeah.
It's incredibly common. It's not an Ipswich thing. It's a statewide thing. There are exceptions in towns that bring in a significant amount of revenue, either from tax revenue from residents in town or from businesses, but those are truly exceptions. It's very common. And the whole point of the 2.5 is just to limit it to, it's intended as a mechanism just for the town to go and say, yes, we want to continue to fund at this level.
Yeah.
It's not about making cuts, and so the mechanism is intentional. And the timing is different for each town.
So it's not unusual.
Oh, no, it is absolutely the norm. It is the exception that towns don't do it.
Okay.
Yeah. Anything else on the calculator?
So, you know, we were talking about the impact of reductions versus whatever our values. I'm curious if you plug in, I know this is a dangerous game, but plug in the February 4th number, I'd like to see what that looks like in the override.
Yep. So if you look at the second tab, the increase was 277,000, just as a round number. It changes the $15 million override to 12.7. So 15.3 to 12.7, so round numbers, 2.5 million.
2.5 million, and the last,
That's the impact of adding back that 277,000. It's, the last override was 2.7 million,
the last in 22?
all right, yeah, I think it's,
1.8. So, you're saying, what did we go to the taxpayers for?
yeah, sorry, I'm looking at the addition of it, yeah, that's right.
So, the difference of that is more than the totality of the last override ask.
That's not the February 4th number, because the February 4th number had the high amount of health insurance.
It did.
So just adding the number's actually much higher than
The cost, not minus that. So if you took the February 4th number,
that. Right. What would that,
it's the $2.5 million. Because you assume all that would have happened anyway. So essentially, imagine you kept all your cuts in place.
yeah,
Use the healthcare savings, the amount we're taking from FEFIs,
right.
all of that's in there. And then you, in the vote, added back an extra you added back 277,000 in spend.
So here,
That's a $2.5 million
but it was 770 something was the, before we added the 260 back, it was 7 something, 760
Yeah.
from healthcare, right? Off the reduction from February 4th, yeah, I don't know what we're doing. I'm just trying to. So if I went back to the February 4th override calculator that you
Yeah.
hadn't adjusted, what was the top number wasn't 44.7? And it wasn't this 42.82,
Yeah,
it was much higher than that.
It was,
And that's the number I mean, if we hadn't,
it was 44,950.
okay.
But you're assuming you don't make the additions and you don't get savings.
I'm just saying
We
what
know
the-
we're getting savings.
I understand that, I'm just saying what the original February 4th, before we went through the healthcare recapture and then the adding it back in, you know, so what was that original override? I can't remember.
Yeah, I'll get to you right now.
15.3, is that right?
And the other thing that happened in the course of the month of February was the FEFI's policy.
Yeah, right.
Because the presentation that the administration made on February 5 does
Yeah,
not
yeah.
I'm just curious what we started at
Yep.
that very first meeting.
Yeah, I have it here, I'm gonna find it, because it's not as simple as those two, because there's lots of other adjustments.
Yeah.
I guess the point is, if you left all of the program reductions in place from February 4th to February, or to March 5th, but you had all those savings of FEFs and healthcare and the increase from the town,
Right.
this next override amount would be $2.5 million lower. Because you added back the $277,000 in cost for those additional programs,
Yeah.
the override amount now is $2.5 million higher.
Okay.
And I think that's the conversation we need to have when we're talking about what is valuable to bring back, at what cost,
Right.
and what risk that we're gonna, I mean, right now, it's down to 15 million, like, knowing that our last ask was 1.8, you know, things increase, but 15 million does not sit well with me.
So, I know I'm just a Marine infantry officer, but how does 277 split over 5 years equal 2.5 million? Is it
It's the,
inflation? Is it?
it's the compounding interest from 27 through FY '34. So
more than 5 years. Yeah.
it's because it's more than 5 years, and we don't get to a point where we need to replenish. So it's over, what is this?
We wouldn't be asking for 15 million at once.
Right.
This is the cost, this is the cost run over the course of the 7 years.
I'm just, because it, you know, even if it's 7 years, 1.4 turns into 2.3. That just, over 7 years, just seems really high.
Well, what assumption is being made too in terms of, so the 2% or the 3%, that works off of that level service budget?
Well, it's.
No,
it's
3%
below
is a
those.
1.5% cut each year.
Right.
Level service is
The
4.5%.
first tab
Okay, okay.
in the
Thank you.
chart, the first tab is the level service budget, which assumes a 4.5% increase. But the 4.5% increase actually isn't representative truly of level service, which is relatively
It's
higher than
conservative,
that.
it's conservative, yeah.
I
Okay.
would, you know, harken back to, you know, the ever-popular page 4 of the budget book. A level service budget for this year, for fiscal '27, was about a 6.5% increase.
The other thing on the grant, and I I realize I only give you the half answer. It's not just the compounding interest of the increase, it's that our budget, the overall cost
Tied into that.
increases by 3%. The revenue we get to pay for it only increases at 2%. And so because those two things separate, that's how you get to the 15.
Okay.
I only give you the first half of the answer, so that's why.
that makes
That's why. If they both increased at 2%, and they would stay the same, the amount we take from the override would stay the same every single year. It's because they're getting further apart that number each year gets increasingly larger.
Okay.
That's why.
And the dollar value of that 1% difference gets larger, 1% of a higher number.
Yeah, that's why you can see in the, if you go to the calculator in row 12, last year we need this year we'll need 1.1 from the stabilization fund. Next year we'll need 1.6 million, then 2, then 2.5, and 3. That's why it increases so much. It's because those two separate. Yeah.
And the other caution on, just to add to, you know, row 11, the row right above it, the revenue from revolving funds.
Yeah, that's not, sorry. I worry about that
You know
one,
what
sorry,
I
keep
was
going.
gonna
Yeah.
You bet you do. I mean, it's not reliable necessarily that it's gonna grow by effectively $100,000 a year.
Right.
It's the access to revolving funds, while I would think it may be more, you know, flatlined. But we will soon deplete school choice, which is a $600,000 to $700,000 grab for us.
Our
And that's
next,
going to go away in a real discernible way very soon.
our next agenda topic on the FEFI's distribution helps us there in offsetting that. And it's a little bit, it doesn't fully address it, and so maybe to go back to where I was before, even before we move into the cost centers or individual programs or anything like that, like starting the budget process again, I think we were there in February, like right at the kickoff is where we started with was, these are the key major numbers that we should be looking at. Does this long-term projection work for us? Are we comfortable with these numbers? And do we feel like they need to come down and they need to go up? That's when we go into the detail of the budget.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, again, I've said it now a couple of times, but the cuts are inevitable, but if we do the higher level strategic planning around instead of going right to those cuts first, that we've done everything else that we can in an intentional way, it makes that decision-making, I don't know what the right word is, it more palatable? I don't know, I mean, nobody wants to see cuts, but like, if we know that's what we're up against, and we've done all of the other possible iterations and thinking, and then even within those cuts, we're having, as we've said, sort of outlining really very clear process around decision-making and how those cuts are being brought forward, it will make all of this, I think, a lot easier, I guess, if that's the right word. Like, I mean, it's not gonna be easy, but it will make it hopefully.
You're totally right. I'll take it further. I think what we're trying to do with some of the strategic changes is it changes the overall educational, the structure of some of those programs to avoid us having to make individual changes. We get ahead of it with the more strategic plan. Yeah, and that's part of, you brought up before, but that's where we're rolling right into it next week, so we can be way ahead of it for next year.
All right, any other scenarios anybody wants to play around with? Stop your heart a little?
Just logistically, I'll move this also into, we have that main folder with all like the key documents, so that will be there. We'll have it for next year, but you've got it, and the reason that it's in there as the Excel file is so that you can you can model, adjust those things yourself. What we do at the beginning of each season, we save off the final, so like, someone makes a change, it doesn't mess it up. If you just keep a local version, that's fine.
All right, thank you. Okay, so now we are on to the FEFI's category allocation vote, including possible discussion about the IEF proposal. So let's start with the general discussion. I dropped in the folder a link to, oh, nope, that's not it, to the document we were working off.
Is this 11G?
It is.
Okay,
Yep.
thanks.
Okay. Tom, do you want to walk us through it?
Sure. So the first tab there that is dated March 19, that's one that we were sort of, changing in real time and as different, scenarios came about. That's why I labeled, I guess, column C or option C at the time was the representative discussion that occurred on March 19. Column D, in the gray box to the right-hand side, is sort of the next set of summaries or next set of assumptions from the following meeting, where the committee seemed to be headed or seemed to be looking for maybe some ways to not have carve-outs as articulated in, I guess, box number 2 or bucket number 2, and what might that look like? So that's really sort of where we landed at the last conversation around, the gray box for option D, that we are to receive, according to the FEFI's distribution at this time, $1,247,891. The school committee voted as already offsets, part of the fiscal '27 budget, $390,000 on those offsets. So we take that off the top. Obviously, part of the requirement is to fund the Manning Fund right off the top. That will be slightly under 20,000, but the number will move, so 20,000 is probably a pretty fair number to put there. So if both of those things, meaning the offsets that you voted and the Manning Fund, are the only things that come off the top, that then gives $837,891 as the available balance to distribute. And then the simple math, if you were to consider the 75-25% split between Payne grants and Twig grants, that's what those dollars would look like to provide each of the committees, the Payne Committee and the Twig Committee, with those dollar amounts. Should that be the committee's, pleasure.
Thank you, Tom. Yeah, so I know a couple of people weren't here last meeting, but I think at minimum, we need to decide the split between Payne and Twig. And then we also had the discussion, do we want to, while we know we can kind of put some money aside in category 2 based on our new policy, is that something we want to do this year? Or do we want to tighten up the policy or the procedure for how we arrive at what would go in category 2? So we basically have, the 837 is the number that we're looking at, how to split that up. Anybody want to opine first?
Can I just put, because we're coming off the override conversation, the difference in column A, we started when we originally discussed in February, versus column C, is a difference of $1.2 million in the next override. Because of how you've decreased the allocation, in allocation 3, the ongoing instructional, by reducing it from 543,000 to 389. That's money that brings down the override. So if you were to bring that back up, if we were to bring that back up, that's an opportunity for 1.2 million savings in our future override. So that would be the first thing I would highlight in terms of the largest overall impact to our budget.
And the impact of that, of putting it there and not elsewhere would be,
I'm sure I understand your question.
what's that?
I'm not sure I understand your question.
If we put more in category 3, that would then,
That would reduce our next override by $1.2 million.
right.
Is that what you're, I'm not sure what,
Impact on the other categories, if we're talking about the impact of moving money around.
Impact, it reduces our ability to fund the grant
Correct.
process. Right, yeah, okay, that's what we're trying to
Correct.
just call out. Okay.
yeah, you're still putting, okay, gotcha. So you're still putting $700,000 to grants, even if you do it that way. The column C has it as you're putting, column C has it as 850,000 instead of 700. That's your difference. So, I mean, personally, I would suggest column A, right? Let's be as aggressive as we can there to keep the override number down. It means you have 700,000 going to grants instead of 850. That's your difference.
Okay, so we did vote on 3. We could go back to that. Regardless, I guess, I'm curious of, let's start with this. We know we need to, figure out the Payne and Twig split. Do we want to get into category 2? Or do we want to just, we had talked last time about having another year of potentially just having anything that has been a grant go through the regular grant process again. So you've got college boot camp going up against whatever else is coming through, for example. So the Payne Grant Committee is making those decisions versus us,
I heard in the last discussion, there were some that people felt very comfortable about and some that people felt uncomfortable about. What I would then recommend is take the ones that, in general, this group is, of the 5 items here, which are the ones that are absolutely comfortable and which ones you would fund. That becomes allocation 2, your second group. Move the rest of that money into allocation 1 and have those other programs get reapproved this year by the committee. That's the safest way to do it.
Yeah, can I ask you two clarifying questions about, I think it specifically would be place-based learning and the principal's professional development plan. So I think where this has come up with the Payne Grant Committee for things that are ongoing, where they're saying, this isn't innovative anymore, right? It's the same thing we're doing every year. So if we, as a school committee and, you know, from the administrators as well, are recommending, these are things we need every year, we're gonna need them every year. So that's why they're ongoing, that's why we continue to do them, and they're no longer innovative. I feel like, I mean, that's the discussion we're having, right? And so for me, the two things here that maybe still would fall into the innovative bucket, if you will, are place-based learning and professional development plans. Because, but correct me if I'm wrong, those things are variable, like specifically what the principals might bring forth of what they want to do for PD is going to change every year. So that could go to the committee and they could say, yay, we're on board with this. Because it's innovative and we have something to discuss here. And the same specifically for place-based learning, like, what those are is going to change. So maybe that's like an easier way to slice it, where these other things they are what they are, and there's nothing really for them to consider, I guess, in terms of being innovative. I'm drilling down to that one piece of criteria. I don't know if that's the way we want to go, but.
So you're saying put pace, I just want to understand.
Yeah,
You're saying
so
put
like
pace,
essentially
base,
you're-
and professional development
Back
back
up.
in category 1.
I don't know. I'm not suggesting we wouldn't want to fund those. Like, those are ongoing needs that we do want to fund those. So I'm just focused on the innovative piece. If we don't want, I don't know. I guess I'm not really making an argument to do it one way or the other. I'm just sort of saying,
Yeah,
for
that's a way to
consideration, we could.
Yeah, I think one of the discussions that we had last time was, if we put things in allocation 2, what if, like, kindergarten swim, like, that's great. What if there's another program that somebody has that's blows that out of the water, if you will?
No pun intended.
And if that's already in bucket 2, and this one comes in, like, it would have sort of knocked that one out. And so I really think that they should go through the process again and have it be up to the grant committees to decide, to put it all back in and see which ones float to the top. Oh, another one. Right? I know, I didn't mean to.
No,
I mean, that's something we had, I think you and I had
Yeah.
talked about yesterday, last time, was put them all in and see which ones rise to the top, and not to have them placed in bucket number 2, where they're sort of protected from other competition that comes in.
Is there anything you would put in the second category?
I don't know, I mean, I was kind of thinking opposite of Haley, actually, and how the, professional development and place-based learning would be in bucket 2, because that's, I don't know, I just feel like that sort of makes sense, but there's arguments, obviously, for the other side, too.
I believe in the austere environment that we're in and going into. Everyone should compete.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody should be grandfathered in just because last year it was really good and we think there's value to it. This is the point I made at the last meeting, was just have them put in a grant proposal. Even if it's almost, the same, it ensures that the administrators of each one of these line items look at it once again. We get to look at it once again. If something else floats in, if something else comes into the system, then we get a chance to prioritize it with everything else. But I don't think somebody should just get a golden ticket into the pot of money because they had it last year. I think in order for it to be equitable and fair, everybody should compete every year.
So we shouldn't have an allocation?
This is where we discuss, we shouldn't have allocations. I don't.
Or we can have, my concern is we don't really have like a vetting mechanism for what goes in there. Like we get the once a year presentations, and I think we all have personal feelings about them. And should we just have a process, if you will, for what kind of gets the golden ticket to be in allocation 2? I just,
Well, we vote it each year though, right?
Yeah.
Like, yeah, so it's not like it's a permanent golden ticket, it's an annual,
sure.
yeah. I feel like that, because what we're talking about too doesn't answer some of what I think you raised the last time in terms of getting the feedback on how it went. So maybe that's the decision for this year too, where it's like, okay, it's gonna go back in that other bucket. And then next year, we would look at, again, I feel like we talked, maybe, I think maybe we discussed it around swim, but like, how are we measuring the efficacy of any of these things? So that then we would say, yes, this merits on, it's not just ongoing because we've done it so many times, but we are then determining, we want it to be ongoing because the outcomes are X, Y, or Z, and therefore we're placing that value on it where we would want to give it a golden ticket because it's, I don't know, do you know what I mean? Like, I think, like, there's some, I don't know how you measure any of these in that way, but that was raised last time, right? I'm not like, okay. So I don't have a solution for it, but maybe that's something that could be thought about preemptively next year before we would consider anything being moved into an ongoing bucket.
So maybe if we hold off on bucket 2 this, for now.
so
Just
I'm
to-
hearing
That's my,
allocate 0 for bucket 2.
for right, yeah, until we talk more about it and have more of a standard of what gets, why something gets in there.
Okay.
So that's my thought.
So we have a thought of 0 for bucket 2. Does anybody have a different approach? That doesn't mean
I
those
have one more
things that-
process question
Okay, go
before we go, sorry, because this came up last year with the new policy, the FEP's policy, where there were some things added back in related to this, where we would get feedback on all of the grants, not just anything that we would be considering for ongoing. When is that happening? Because that should be happening this presumably sometime for the things that were ran last year. We're more than halfway through the year, so we would be able to get that information back.
Do you have an answer to that? Because there is a form that was created. Oh, it is. Thank you. Okay. 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 So that's interesting.
So
This will
summer
be the first
retreat.
year that we're getting that feedback, right? Yeah.
Is there a presentation? Is there gonna be a presentation, or we just get the forms? Oh, people aren't giving a presentation onto
I think it's just the
writing it down,
forms.
submitting the form. Okay.
Feedback form.
And they have to submit that,
Wow.
they have to submit the
Working in
feedback
progress.
form before they apply again?
No.
No, okay.
Yeah, I think it's a process we're gonna have to, because as I was mulling over, I still don't know, looking on the calendar for the pain grant meeting. But even if it's, when we start to approve these programs, and even if we bucketed, I hate to pick on Kinderswim, but there's been so many puns with Kinderswim, I will keep beating it. You know, if Kinderswim doesn't have any measures of effectiveness, and we just keep putting money into it, but after we put money into it, the measure of effectiveness, well, it's not super effective. We've already kind of committed to it, so how do we get the cycle of assessment reallocating, how do we get that cycle flowing in the right way so that,
I think at a more granular level, then we'll need to figure out what the rubric is.
well, I would hope they would have that, right? I mean,
Well, for the efficacy.
Yeah.
I mean, teaching kindergartners how to swim is always going to be effective. If we prevent one kid from drowning, it's worth $19,000. But
well, that makes it something
How
that
do
they
we-
taught the kid how
how
to
do
swim,
we-
right? I mean, I don't think, throwing a kindergartner in the pool and, yeah, I mean, my point would be, that's why I think the annual reapplication comes with the measure, if it's something that's been done, part of that package is, here's how effective or not effective it was, so we have an informed decision.
Well, and
But-
those will have to, sorry,
Go ahead.
those would have to be individual. We can't just come up with a generic rubric for
Right.
efficacy because obviously they're all different, like how you measure, okay, we've got however many kindergarten students going in, are they assessed when they come in, here's their level of proficiency, and then they're assessed when they come out, and here's how that's improved, or whatever. Obviously, how you measure that is gonna be very different than how you would measure
Measure
college
field
boot
trips.
camp. But maybe that's part of, that's, that's a big undertaking, but
So I'd ask the question, is there anything anyone feels strongly within category 2, the ongoing program? I'm not actually, you didn't really speak up, but I'm not hearing anything. So I guess my suggestion would be strike this as, I'm going to update column C. If we make this zeros, move that money into category 1, call that 500 for pain, 100,000 for twig, you got your 77, you can even bump it up. That also allows you an increased allocation for category 3, so you're at, let's call this 520. You've got 700,000, it's slightly shy of what we funded this year, and it still allows you to significantly carve out money in allocation 3, which goes back to bringing down your override amount.
Yeah, we're still.
And you still have 155 unspent.
That's what I'm suggesting. So bump that up here so that make this, call it round numbers.
Are you comfortable with that suggestion?
I know, I was gonna say it.
Why would you even ask? Let's just keep rolling. Easy there.
You weren't here, you wasn't here.
As we start to,
Well, I noticed the column C
was
was,
very well
it
behaved.
was specifically set up for March 9th.
so I
That's why.
think as we start to unravel or actually solidify the process, part of the grant submission would be measures of effectiveness. You know, how are you going to, what's the rubric, what are the measures? How do you measure outcome? And that's part of the package so that we can assess the package at the completion of the budgeted cycle. And I know it's something that they're not doing this year, but certainly having a way to figure out is the juice worth the squeeze, you know, for these programs is important.
So that the application would then need to be adjusted so that next year's applicants know that that's part of what they would be including. Okay.
Then I have to go through the policy again.
And each one would be different, right? It's not just a cookie cutter form, to your point,
Yeah.
because
They would need to, but that answers what I was starting to spin out on is, how would we begin to do? We wouldn't, they would. They would
Right.
need to include, be thoughtful about that, which, yeah,
Maybe that's it,
logistically,
but
like, yeah.
Grants that are coming back for more need to do this path, you know, like this application or whatever. So I think what I'm hearing is that perhaps for next school year, we're going to need to reinstate the FES policy working group.
Yeah.
You know, but it's, the timing's right. I mean, it's really in the last several years that we've had this really good problem, you know? So I think we're asking the right questions, and I think I'm comfortable having the allocations and these potentials. It's just, yeah, is this the right year to
Real estate.
pop stuff into allocation 2? So, okay, so,
The one last thing, just in general, that I'm comfortable with is the idea of the second category of ongoing programmatic, updating the policy when we talked about it at the end of February. The idea was with the foresight of larger things that might become an issue with future budget reductions. We're not there now, but I could see 3 years from now, when there might need to be cuts, this becomes a lever for us to pull to keep those things that are way above and beyond state mandate, way above what other neighboring towns have, but we've candidly kind of gotten used to. But they truly are enrichment. We just have them and we've been able to fund them. This allows us in future years to help avoid cuts to those programs. So I think even now, having it in place as a mechanism is wildly important, even if we don't explicitly fund this second category. So I
Or
think
would these
counterpoint-
things, oh, sorry.
no, I was going to say the counterpoint to that though is, you know, you just described desirements versus requirements, right? And so category 2 becomes desired things, and when we get into the hard discussions about what are requirements, that actually becomes a cut list. I mean, the way you described it, right? It's-
Yeah, like you're thinking about like our robotics program, which has been here for years, or just the level of arts, music, theater programs.
I'm with you. Listen, I'm not.
Those things
at
go there
all.
now.
That makes it
Yeah.
special, right?
Yeah.
But what's the requirement? And at some
Yeah.
point with this budget, we're gonna be at the bone, and desired things, this could
Yeah.
help offset even more.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm
Right.
suggesting, yeah.
Yeah.
I think that that's where we go back to the district vision statements and the school improvement plans and those things, because we always say that these things are valued documents, right? And so they have to all align. And so presumably, some of these things already are showing up there, but that's where we highlight, that's why these decisions are being made, because we as a district are saying we value these things and they're priorities for us.
Right.
Okay.
So I moved that funding up to the first category, cleared out everything out of the second to the point of let's have all of those bring submissions again. And adjusted some of the numbers just to total us out to the 1.247 that we believe will have this year.
You're working off a category, I'm sorry, column C.
Column C.
Did Manning, are we still accounting for that?
Oh.
We should keep that, yeah.
That is,
Need to.
we're popping it in allocation too, but it's kind of its
Yep.
own little world. But
Yep.
yeah, as long as we're making sure that lives somewhere. Okay.
So
And
do we have to vote
those-
again on that, because we had already voted before?
Oh,
Is this exercise for the purpose of impacting fiscal '27?
Yeah, we'd vote on this and then we'll revote the total, the withdrawal from stabilization based off of this.
Yeah, okay.
because we voted
So
on.
if
Okay,
that,
great.
that being the case, I'm gonna say this, but I'm not sure it's 100% accurate. Did we just willy-nilly change the allocations in the 3 schools without, like, you just changed something from 185
Do you want,
to
Do you-
165? I don't know.
are you
how
looking
we-
for precise numbers in there? You've got more, so for example, I put a placeholder of like the 180, 165. We can adjust that,
Those are
but
placeholders, okay.
the intention was that that category as a whole goes to fund those programs in the district. That's at least how the policy is written. The Excel sheet was helpful for a practical perspective, but the way the policy is written, we don't need to explicitly allocate a certain dollar amount to each of the schools.
Okay.
The policy just says, in what's in column C now is 525. You could take all of that from Doyon or all of that just from the high school because it helps bring down the overall district budget, not an individual school.
Because I was gonna, the
We use
reason I
this-
asked is because I would imagine that the high school
Yeah.
would be the highest, not the lowest.
We did this because it was helpful as the, like, I think even the original question, which was good, was could we even spend the money? But it would go to the overall district. The individual school matters less.
So you
But I
just
think you
put
saw that
those-
number move just because he was adjusting the 20K that had to go back up to Manning. so-
Understood, right, yep.
I hear what you're saying.
Yeah, I'm just like, you know.
Yeah, I mean, to make it, I understand your point. I mean, you could make it,
165.
I mean, I don't know that we need to allocate to specific schools, right? If the-
that's what I'm saying. Yeah, that was not the intention. We did that as an illustration before to make it real. So honestly, what I would do
And
is
in
just,
real life, it's just,
I would just call that 525 right here.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So just call it one total dollar amount. That, in practicality, that's what it would be.
So we had previously voted 390. What you put here is 525.
Yeah, that's my suggestion is because you're just at the 2 categories, use, just for round numbers, 700,000 for category 1 and 525 for category 3.
So that.
We're not
affect the
breaking out
budget?
Peen and Twig.
Last budget, the budget we just.
It would reduce the amount, because it's going from 390 to 525, means you need to draw down less from stabilization. That was Diana's question earlier of like, what does that mean? Long-term, that difference is about 1.2 million, say, reduction in a future override as well.
So we can still do that even though like I guess we'll revote.
That's right. We would vote these 3 categories, and it would adjust that stabilization amount. We need to technically revote the stabilization. We'd need to revote the amount coming from stabilization, which we need to do anyway, because that's on our agenda. And so this would just fall into that.
Yep.
Should we feel like these are the right amounts? Again, either of them can adjust, but that was my proposal based off of liquidating allocation 2 into allocation 1.
I like it. Okay, let's,
I'm sorry, I shouldn't have said liquidating, just for the record. There is still 20,000 in there for the Manning Award, just to be, that matters. So yeah, I just want to be clear on that, yeah.
so let's just live with the presumptions in column C for a minute. If if we land here or around here, and we've got, call it 700 in allocation one, category one, is that the split of Payne Twig that makes sense? I guess it's unfortunate Jen's not here because she's on Twig, but
Because that's what we were saying, it's 75%, 25%.
it's what we've done historically.
Right. So why would, like, would there be a reason to change that?
I would,
I don't think so.
no, I guess like the Twig, is there unexpended Twig money?
From this year?
Like typically, is it, what's asked for is granted and there's no money left, or is there, because if we're, I don't know if this is
470.
true, but if we're consistently not using it, then maybe we go 20/80, you know? I'd love to get a recommendation there.
Just to clarify, a 75-25 split would be like 470, 150.
Right.
470. How much did we fund last, how much did Payne, Payne did not, Payne did choose not to fund a couple of things last year.
Yeah.
Correct.
So I don't know for Twig, but I know for Payne, they did.
So if you go to the second to last tab, which is FY '26 FEFI spend summary,
Thank you.
you have a view of all of the spending and all of the grants for this year. The very top on the left, this year, we're funding $805,000 in Payne and $268,000 in Twig.
Oh, wow. I didn't realize Twig was so high.
And this whole spreadsheet are all of the grants.
So I don't know if I'm gonna muddy the waters anyway, but I'm going to. So next year, this budget that we're talking about, the England trip is coming up. And that's typically about, I think the last time might have been like a $98,000 ask to offset the cost of the trip for the kids to England. My initial conversation with Michael was, he asked me, you know, how high he could go in terms of an ask. I think he was asking, he was initially gonna be asking like in the $150,000 range for that trip. So I don't know if that impacts how we wanna do the distribution for this coming year or not, knowing that that's gonna be a significant ask. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. Knowing full well that that one's coming forward and the $200,000 ask for leveling up athletics is gonna be coming forward. I mean, those are just two that we know of, plus the ones that we just moved up from allocation two, bucket two, right?
I think the England trip's a good point, at least to consider. The level up athletics, we haven't seen that here, right? Like, we haven't seen any kind of proposal, there's been no discussion about it. I just worry you got a placeholder for something that we've never discussed in a full committee or subcommittee.
Right, so
It's hard for us to say like, yeah, we should be putting aside $200,000.
Well, no, I'm not saying to put aside $200,000. It's going in as a paying grant, you know, just a,
Yeah.
you know,
Oh, no,
a
no.
naked paying
Sorry,
grant,
I
if you
should-
will, that it's not something that we're earmarking for, but,
Yeah.
but we know that that's gonna be coming forward. We know that the England trip is
Yep.
gonna be coming forward. I'm not saying that we should allocate money specifically to them, because they're gonna be coming in as
Right.
grant requests. But just in terms of the split, knowing that those are
Consideration of
all
making that.
big for this coming year.
That's where I feel, I mean, actually, Paul, you made this point, so I'll just repeat it. That's where I feel like that prioritization works as it has. If you had both of those at the same time, and they said, yeah, 350 of that should go to those two programs, those were the two most important ones, they prioritized, like, everything's working like it's supposed to, so I feel like we're okay. If that number was 125 and we knew we were gonna have a problem getting either of those, that would feel different. We've got enough to do both of those plus more. I mean, personally, I feel like it's set up to work the way it's supposed to. I think we're okay there. We don't usually see something the size of 200, right? They're usually closer to like 40, 50.
Yeah.
So if they were to say, we want to do one program instead of 4 to 6 other ones, I mean, that, let them make that choice. I think that totally makes sense to me. Yeah.
Yeah.
But either way, we have space to let that committee make that decision.
I mean, 80/20 would bring it up to 500,000. I don't know if that's, would make a difference, but I'm comfortable with the percentage that we've been doing, 75,
You're
25.
saying that round number, that 470, yeah.
What is, oh. So, okay. Let's start with this. Are we comfortable with going with the 525 in allocation 3 and a 697-ish in allocation 1?
Yes, I am.
Okay. So within that, let's just get it all kind of conceptualized, and then we can formally vote. Within that, the Payne Twig, I see, so you did the 75, 25, you just said we could do.
Well, I just threw out the 2080.
Okay.
You know what we should note, I didn't think about this because it's called out separate, but that 77,000 for dance drama is the second year of a Payne. Should you count that in the 75?
Oh, interesting.
And so that would make it, so if you just said, call this bucket 700,000 total, that would make Payne 175,
I don't know where you,
I'm sorry, Twig 175, and then bring this down to, just for round numbers, call it
Oh, I see. 'Cause the
450.
77 would come out of the 470.
Yeah, yeah, so that makes the
Ah,
Payne
it's not
grant
twice.
450 plus 77, so it's really 527 for Payne, 175 for Twig. We just had something earmarked there. So the numbers changed just slightly. It went a little above 700,000 instead of below, but it brings Twig up a little bit. How do people feel about that?
Yeah,
So we were,
Brings it up a lot.
brings up a lot, yeah.
I mean, 75,000 is,
That's
are 10 Twig grants. They're 7,500 each that they cap out at.
Great point. Does that feel about right? So we're still at the 75-25. We're accounting that dance drama teacher as part of the 75. It just
Well,
split out here.
Last year, we had 26 applications. They weren't all for 75.
No, that's
Close
right.
to that, but,
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm saying the
they,
max.
yeah, they cap out at
yes,
75.
I understand.
Yeah,
I'm
so
just
it's at least that many, yeah.
Yeah.
yeah, so there's $450,000. Okay.
Yeah.
That looks good.
if we go with this scenario, I'm not hearing any objections. Okay, then I think the cleanest way to do it, and Tom, correct me if I'm wrong, is to vote in percentages versus dollar amounts.
Well, I was just going to ask that question. Are we, is your pleasure to vote dollar amounts this year and then revert to percentages in the future?
Because we don't have a,
This is,
to avoid the specifics, because things are going to change $1 here and there.
right.
What I would propose is we vote to allocate 525,000 to category 3, 20,000 to category 2, and the remaining balance to category 1.
Yeah,
Okay, and then
that's
within
exactly what I
that,
was going to suggest, to get us out of this.
And then, yeah, that's, do we vote on that?
We have historically.
Okay, I couldn't remember if that was in the policy or if it was, we voted. Okay,
The other thing, just to say out loud, is that at the end of the day, we're going to get a precise figure.
yeah,
So if we, you folks were to vote a number now,
Yeah.
that means I'm going to have to come back and ask for a revote, because the number's going to be,
That-
we're not going to get precisely 247,891.
that's my suggestion of use a precise number for the first two and then call number 1 the remaining
That's
balance,
exactly
to
what
avoid that.
on board.
I mean, we should have that, obviously, that'll
Eventually.
not, it would need to, that always comes here, so we'll always know that amount, but we wouldn't need to revote. Okay.
then, okay, two things, just so it's said. I know you said before, but So with this category 3 going up, Tom, can you find enrichment and enhancement to offset in the existing budget?
We can.
Okay, thank you. And I guess you will be able to do some math between now and the next
You want-
agenda item. You don't have to do it now, but.
Okay.
I'm sure.
Yeah,
this
yeah,
will
so
make sense.
that's an increase of 135,000 for allocation 3.
Which offsets the, yeah.
So then we'll have to figure
Oh,
that
yeah,
out.
oh, yeah,
Okay.
yep.
All right.
We can have that for the next meeting. Just for information purposes.
I think she's suggesting, can we do the math right now so that we can vote on the new stabilization balance, or the withdrawal from stabilization in our next agenda item?
We already have
So
we
you-
already know that it's 525. We just don't have to split it between the 3 schools.
The next item on our agenda is the stabilization balance, because
Right.
we have changed from the town. So it would just be that, and then subtract another 160,000. Or, I'm sorry, 135,000. Yeah. Okay.
That's the change that would be 135,000.
Yes, in addition to the
Yeah.
other changes.
Correct.
You start that, I'll go
We would
real slow
effectively-
making my
We would
motion.
lower the,
You start that, I'll be real
Yeah,
slow
yeah.
making my motion.
Yeah, that's right. We would reduce the amount, the withdrawal from stabilization by 135 plus whatever we discuss coming from the town. That would be the proposal here.
Correct.
Yeah, okay. So I move that we distribute the FEFI's funds as 525,000 to category 3 ongoing instructional enrichment, 20,000 to category 2 ongoing programmatic enrichment, and the remaining balance to category 1 pain grant and twig.
Second. Oh, no.
With and within that category, a allocation of 75% of it to the pain grant and 25% of it to the twig. Traverso Weatherall.
Second.
Second by Jenny. Further discussion? All in favor? Motion passes unanimously.
And we don't need to call out the dance, funding the dance, like, that's just.
It's understood that,
Yeah.
and indicated there, it's year 2 of a pain grant.
Yeah.
So that's not additional, it's going to come out of the pain allocation.
it's also in the budget as coming out of the pension. So if we were to change that, that's,
Yeah, good point.
Okay, all right. Next up, so all that just happened, but and I guess, would it be helpful to take like a 5-minute recess?
Yes.
Okay, I'm hearing a motion.
Yeah, let's do it.
Second by Paul. Okay, all in favor? Okay, we'll plan to come back in approximately 5 minutes, or we'll call back to order. Okay.
9:30, we'll be back, 6 minutes.
This is just an, what are the chances that,
Likely still hot. Okay.
that pain won't be drawn down to 0?
can you, I'm sorry.
Like 99%.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can't imagine that they would ever manage it that way.
Okay.
We get,
Let's wait till we call back to order.
I'll wait till everybody, okay, because it's just,
Pain grants, or just
well,
FEs?
no, the allocation A, what's the what chance is that they wouldn't draw to 0?
We're on a recess.
yeah, we'll
Okay.
do it when we
Yeah,
come
yeah,
back.
right.
We'll do it when we come back, yeah.
They didn't want to derail the vote.
Maybe if you two want to talk
Oh, okay.
separately outside, I think you can have that conversation.
You probably already all know the answer to that question.
I think it might be in that spreadsheet.
I looked, I couldn't, if I read the spreadsheet right, it's like 264 was left over from 21. And then in 24, it looked like we had 139 left over.
I don't know that.
That's
but yeah,
correct.
we're looking
That's
at it.
correct.
Is that how I'm reading, am I reading that
You are
right?
reading it
Okay.
correctly, yes.
All right. And right now, we're on glide slope to have about 156,000 left over.
Yeah, it's in progress, so I would anticipate it to be less than that,
Okay.
but there will be something, there very likely will be something left over. The other thing to note on all of these grants, both Payne and Twig, especially Twig, is that we're still a quarter of the year left to go.
Right.
Some of them, some events that are funded haven't even occurred yet.
But on this spreadsheet, you have awarded, and that's the allocated amount, like that's when you say awarded, that's in FY '25, we've allocated 1,036,000 against 1,053,000.
Correct.
So even,
So
so at
even
the end of the
to-
day, when we coalesced all the grants this year, we still came in under the available money.
Correct, by $16,000.
Okay.
So if you look at,
Okay, and so that
row
balance is the
15.
rolling balance that we just keep carrying over?
no, row 15 is representative of each year.
Okay. So what did we do with the 134 in FY '24?
It's still in the fund.
Oh, it is, it just rolled into the,
Correct.
Oh, I
It rolls forward. Yeah, so if you see the bottom number in row 19 appears the next year as the top number
right.
for the next year.
But if I took, so let's take the, what is it, G19,
Yep,
and I move up, and I go, okay, H8,
yep.
but the distribution in H11 isn't H8 plus H10.
That's
It's
correct.
just H10.
It's H10 because that is the annual distribution of what we receive from the FEFI's trustees.
But so oh, I see, so A plus. I'm just trying to figure out where that 139 got added to the 16,687.
Yeah, you got it. There you go. 139 plus 16 is 156. Yep.
Okay. Which will, when we come out of recess, that will generate my question. So I guess, at what point do we go, that money is available for retasking?
Well, that money is available for retasking. That's at your discretion.
Okay.
The school committee can frankly instruct me what to do with it. One option is to give it back to the trust.
Well, no.
Well, I'm just,
No.
my job is
Because
to present you with options.
I don't know when I'm tripping over meeting law. I'm good for now, I'll wait till we come back in. I just needed to understand the spreadsheet before I ask my question.
Yeah, I have that too. Yeah. I didn't do the number from the town yet, but that, yeah.
Yeah. Of course, that presumes that my recommendation is going to move forward at the, at the
Oh,
1
yeah, 'cause that's all that,
1.12.
yeah, that's right. Yeah. Yep, I'm with you.
If you do step A, then that's step B.
Yeah, I'm with you. Yeah, no, I totally understand. And agree.
Are the mics on?
Yeah. How you ditch them.
We didn't do this.
That's next.
Oh, but we,
That's why I said move it to after this.
but are we,
Yeah, we
just
discussed
vote?
that. That was just on the, oh, the second part, sorry, yeah. I thought you were pointing to the
Sorry, yeah, this.
B. Yeah, we did the first part of E, and then we broke, and now we'll do that one. Yeah.
Wouldn't this
Ready?
have impacted what we just voted on?
Okay, we're calling back to
That's
order
that's it for-
at 9:31. All right, Tom, are you
I am.
good? Amazing. All right. Are you present? Okay, so
And whatever you need.
appreciate that. So Tom, you sent that email, if you want to just give like a one-sentence update about this $62,000.
So, for your schedule, you're on the agenda, you also have the inquiry from the IEF proposals. You want to cover that now before we jump back to
Sure do, I appreciate
potential
you
vote?
pointing that out, yes. So, we received the email that I forwarded everybody about IEF, you know, questioning if they had a place to be involved in the FEFI's allocation. I hear it come up when we were talking about the allocations to 1, 2, and 3, and I apologize for not bringing it up before then. I didn't hear it come up, and I'm wondering if anybody has thoughts on that.
I think it has to go through the grants process. That's how I would feel, instead of just giving a certain amount. It needs to go through the process. That's my feeling.
100% agree.
Agree. I'm not aware of where we've had any issue that this would help address. So I'm not sure what exactly the problem is. I do also worry there's aspects of it that could be in violation sort of the trust because it's going to a group outside of the district.
Right.
Third party.
And a third, and even the policy. And so I don't even see how we, without some kind of legal review, I don't even know how we would even begin to have that conversation, which
Yeah.
I'm not in favor of it anyway, but it feels like it's a real big deal.
Yeah, that was my major concern. It
Yeah.
was sort of like you're giving agency to a whole separate group that we have no oversight over
Yeah.
in terms of how they're managing their funds. And the only thing that I think was raised within it that does warrant some conversation is anything that's off cycle, right? So that's the idea where we have the cycle and the grants need to come in a certain period of time. Are there places where we have in the budget where a need like that comes up and the teacher can, or administrator can come, bring that forward?
So in terms of the paying grant process and the TWIG grants, I think that's why we went to twice a year with the TWIG grant, so that there were 2 funding cycles available to staff. There aren't many immediate needs that come up that would be of an emergency nature that we would have to reallocate things. I think, the IEF is looking for opportunities to provide funding for grants and ideas that teachers and community members have. And so that's why they're making the ask. And I think over time, teachers have come to know that they can go to IEF to ask for money. They may get their grant funded. Whereas we have a very specific process, twice a year for the TWIGs, once a year for PAIN. And we have a process in place that they're completely outside of that.
So, I will respond. I heard you say, okay, they could apply through the proper channels, but I'm wondering if that even is an option, because needs to be like a staff member doing the application, right? So would that,
Has to be sponsored by a staff member.
right, so would that apply? Is there a staff member on that committee?
I'm a non-voting member, and the school committee rep is a non-voting member, so technically.
So there's access only for them to apply for a grant. Okay, so at this time, we are not
Not inclined to support it.
any money
Right.
to IEF. Okay. All right, thank you, Sasha, for catching that, and I will send that email.
But, you know, for the record, the interesting point is, and it went kind of the conversation we were having about in extremis is the right word, because that implies something different, but emergent requirements that are off-cycle, our process shouldn't be so rigid that we don't have an opportunity, if it's really important, to bring it back before a committee on a special session, like, and talk about it. That's what I was trying to get, looking at Tom's spreadsheet, you know,
People can make requests to the building principal if it's that important, and
Right,
we can look
right.
through the budget process.
right, and that would take care of whatever the issue they thought they were trying to solve.
Sorry, Mike. Thank you, Sasha, for reminding me that I missed that on the agenda. You leave and everybody for the discussion.
Thank you for clarifying that.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
All right. I think we're ready for the next agenda item. Okay. So now we're, like, to talk about the 62,000 new money.
Certainly. So I had sent the committee an email, I believe, Monday of this week, with some news from the town manager's office that the availability of resources by the town to fund fiscal '27 has, through a couple of different actions, but effectively has increased by $62,788. And the recommendation that we're making this evening is to reduce the draw from stabilization by that amount. Right now, the budget that you folks have voted is to withdraw from stabilization $1,185,295. And if you were to adopt the reduction by the 62,000 that is coming to the district, the withdrawal from stabilization would be $1,122,507. Now, just to, I guess, further that, hearkening back to the conversation of moments ago and the discussion that the school committee had with regard to the FEFI's allocation, to roll that forward, that would also now reduce the withdrawal from stabilization by $135,000, bringing the new figure to vote, if you were to take both of those steps, one with reduced by $62,000 for step one and reduced by $135,000 in step two, brings the request from stabilization to $987,507. So if you're inclined to do both of those steps, the revote tonight from withdrawal from school stabilization would be $987,507.
Any questions about the figure on the check?
Just one question, and I assume it meets the criteria, we're reallocating FEFI's money. But I guess in theory, we're using it to offset a budget line somewhere
Correct.
that is enhancement. Okay, I just want to make sure that,
Correct. What that would look like, how that would manifest itself in the post-town meeting action that I would take is effectively the production of a revision to the budget book that would include in the far right columns
for the FEFI's.
adding the $135,000 in a variety of places.
Okay, thank you.
Is there specific language to the motion? Did I remember you mentioned something in the consent agenda, but I don't see.
Oh, no, I didn't draft a motion to this. The motion would be rather straightforward, similar to the budget vote that you took
So I,
March 5th.
so I could move to withdraw 987, et cetera, from the stabilization account? That
Correct.
would be it, okay. I move to withdraw not, what's that? Oh, I'm sorry, I thought you asked questions. I thought Paul's was the only one. My fault, sorry.
My question is just, I mean, I love this, I'm curious about the change in the overlay surplus.
Oh, sure. I thought you wanted me to do a higher level view. Apologies for that. So the town provided us with three factors that contribute to the netting out of an increase of 62,000. The first thing is that there was a reevaluation of all available receipts coming into the town, and the town and school then splits the availability of all receipts. So the increase from the new estimated receipts for fiscal '27 brought our apportionment of that up by 12,788. The second thing is that you may recall back in January the 30th, at a meeting that the town manager had with Brian and I, we were informed that the reduction, that there would be a reduction of $100,000 by the town contribution from the figure that we had previously received from the town finance office. So the town manager on January 30th was effectively lowering the town contribution at that time. He now, in this action from earlier in the week, has withdrawn that reduction, thereby effectively reinstating the $100,000 that he had asked us, or he had informed us that there would be 100,000 less. We're now going to, that amount is going to be reinstated. However, in step 3, the town overlay, surplus amount, which was, we also informed that to plan on $150,000 to be our contribution from the overlay surplus carrying forward into fiscal '27, is being reduced by 50,000, from 150,000 to 100,000. So the net effect of an increase of the 12,788, the increase of 100,000, and then the decrease of 50,000 nets us out to 62,788 as an increased contribution from town coffers.
So that shouldn't be in parentheses, right? It should just be a, like, never mind.
Are you looking at the,
Well, because it-
11B2,
What's that? It should-
11B2, the document.
oh, you,
All
okay.
your additives are without, and your subtractions are in parentheses, so that's 62,788, and the bottom is in a.
Well, that's just, so, okay, that's a good point. So on the spreadsheet, that 62 as a negative is the difference between the vote you took on March 5th and the potential vote you're being asked to take tonight. And what the purpose of the last column is to show that there is no impact to the bottom line of the budget. So I needed to net those figures out. There were effectively two positives and a negative that netted out a reduction of 62,000 from school stabilization, but no impact to the bottom line of the fiscal '27 budget overall.
Got it.
Okay, so I guess my question was specific. I'm pleased that we net out in the positive, but wondering why the overlay surplus money went down.
Well, the information that I received was that I think they were, the town calculations at the time, back in January, that were probably a little optimistic about what would be available for overlay surplus. And we, the school department, get half of what is available. So instead of effectively having 300,000 in overlay surplus, the new revised estimate is that there would only be 200,000, and we would get half of that.
Sasha, I believe you were making a motion.
I move to withdraw $987,507 from the stabilization fund to fund the FY27 budget.
Second.
Sasha, second by Haley, further discussion. All in favor? Pop that into the calculator. All right. Next, school committee and superintendent goals for year review. Just go, start with school committee goals. Instructional leadership, Haley, you want to take this kind of through? Better?
Yeah, we met a while ago, so I'm gonna need some help. Jenny. Can I ask a procedural question, though? I dropped this into the folder, I emailed everyone, said it was here, but I obviously see you number things based on the agenda items. Should I be sending them to you to put in the folder? Is that, and then you just can rename it? Okay. Okay. So just formatting wise, as we read through, obviously took the goals that everyone voted on and just marked our sort of suggestions or commentary on where we thought we were in red below. So the first goal, ensure rigorous, inclusive teaching and learning. We will review academic trends and action plans in response, review equity gap data annually and action plans in response, review annual summaries of extracurricular participation, elementary to middle to high school retention, graduation rates, social emotional learning measures, and overview of support services and responsive implementation. I'm not going to read all of these out, but I will do the we will. So the metrics obviously below are sort of how we were driving to like what the we will look like. And so we essentially just put a list together that I had sent to Dr. Blake, Diana, and Jen to try to think about how we can weave some of this reporting and data into the rest of the year for agenda planning. So that's what this year represents, the specific data and things that we would like to be able to have a look at to see how we're doing and what the trends are, how we're responding to them, et cetera. So the SEL data, I had put ASAP because we met in conjunction with when budget was happening. So I think because there was a counselor position in discussion, we thought maybe some data would come out of that. But we didn't, that position was put back in and we didn't go there. So if we could come back to that one, that would be great on an upcoming meeting. And then I guess the others, I don't know if you want to speak to them or not, if they're going to go into agenda planning or if there are other thoughts that people have in terms of things that we haven't captured here.
Yeah, they're all things that we've worked into the calendar for our agenda planning.
Okay.
That's across the board since all of the school committee goals are based on mine.
Yeah. I do want to just call out the graduation details report. I don't think that was something we explicitly talked about when we wrote the goals, but remember last year there was a teacher who came and spoke during public comment.
It's actually a parent
Okay.
who came and just talked about all the cool stuff that was going on with the senior class and everything.
Yeah, she literally read out, it was like a data report in a way where she said X amount of students are doing this and doing that. It was so impactful.
Yep.
So something like that I think would be really
Yep.
nice to see. Anything else, anybody? This goal? Okay. So goal 2, oversee safe, equitable, and effective operational systems. A lot of these things, you know, are sort of organic, if you will, within the subcommittees. And so obviously approving the fiscal year 26 budget at town meeting, long-term capital plan, saying Rob's over there tonight, long-term budget planning, reviewing updates on the MSBA project, collaborating with the school building committee on the MSBA process, staying informed and engaged with townwide initiatives by collaborating with other town boards, awareness of general community projects, and giving input when appropriate, and then an ongoing policy review, 3-year cycle. Within that, completing the new athletic policy by June 2026, which we've done. Evaluate updated FEFI policy by June 2026, also ongoing. Field trip rubric, so I think we also talked about that tonight. So reviewing the annual report on FEPI distribution. So I guess maybe that's something we can be specific about putting in the June retreat agenda, if that's when we're gonna get those forms back for the grants for last year. I don't think that says it below, but we could add it in if we need to.
What is it?
Sorry, I'm under we will, just reading through all the bullets.
What
of
do you
we
want the retreat?
Reviewing the FEFI's distribution, like, the feedback from it. This is different though. The annual report is what comes from the FEFI's. They present that to us at the end of the year, right? They did last year. Yeah. They don't do that every year?
Before that,
So we should change.
Although I think they came because we hadn't seen them in a little while, and the intention was to do it annually. I would suggest to make that an annual thing.
Okay.
I don't know why it wasn't.
we have it
Yeah, yeah.
penciled in on the agenda, I agree. And maybe incorporate that in the
Yeah.
policy.
But back to your point, there's two separate things.
Yeah,
One is for
that's
them
the
to
same-
report
yeah,
out,
I think
and
my
then two
brain
is,
went
yeah.
there because we were just talking about
Yeah.
it, but we should think about that,
Should go.
adding that for the goals for
Yeah.
next year to
Yeah,
tease
yeah.
those two things out. Review annual report on override and stabilization, check. Address unanticipated health, safety, or facility improvements. Okay, so we're gonna skip over metrics. So the way this is formatted is obviously each of those are sort of in categories. So for operational effectiveness, we've talked in the operations subcommittee a couple of times, just in terms of trying to leverage that group a little bit more, because really what we've been responsible for is the goals at the beginning of the year, and then that's kind of it. And so, what's that? Yes, but, well, yes. And so, but even, I mean, I can only speak from my experience. When I was onboarded, the people who sort of gave me an initial run-through were not a part of operations subcommittee. So there wasn't any overlap or communication around that. And certainly, I think there's a lot for us to do for onboarding. We were also just talking through a number of things that sort of have happened throughout the year. Certainly the situation at the beginning of the year with relating to the nurse at the Winthrop School, and how are we able to sort of have conversations around those kinds of things that are appropriate and not related to the person specifically, but more high level process and all of that kind of stuff. So just figuring out how that can either be done in a smaller group environment, if we could have, the attorney come in and help us, orient us around how those kinds of things are addressed procedurally, or if that's something, again, summer retreat, or something that the whole committee could participate in understanding better. You know what I mean? Yeah.
I know exactly what you mean. Yes, I think that's what you mean. It would be perfect. Either by legal counsel or MASC can.
Yep. Anything else
No,
on
that's
operation?
good.
Okay. Budget, we feel we're aligned with what was outlined above. Anything there for others? MSBA communication updates have been provided in the newsletters. And obviously, we have a lot of representation on the school building committee as well and at those meetings. So we felt we were on track with what should be happening there. Since you both are on that. I mean,
I
anything?
reported out
Yeah.
where we are today, and we try to keep everybody up to date on what's happening. I've sort of been the point person with MSBA to make sure that the paperwork is flowing and that we're collectively meeting all of our deadlines.
Yeah. For committee members, do you feel like you've had enough information where you feel like you're, I don't know, informed? Okay. And then I think communication, the most recent newsletter, we did have more information in that than we have in some of the previous months where we've kept it a little more high level. I think that was mostly a push for me because we are not doing a lot of communications from the school building committee yet, and with the challenges we've had around the website, content, and that kind of stuff, just wanted to get take the opportunity to try to get a little more in front of the community around that. Facilities, one thing that's new, I think obviously we've had a lot of issues with, things breaking and us needing to respond, and some of that is not, a lot of it is not a surprise. We know what we're gonna be up against in terms of building maintenance. We discussed the idea for, could we cut, again, task force, like, is there some kind of group that could be put together where we're thinking about the situation at Joyon, three additional days where school was completely closed, where if we know, other boilers are having trouble here at the middle school, high school, or something happens at any of the schools, could we put a plan for learning in place where we would be able to say, here's how to minimize potential school kids missing school when the buildings aren't functioning, knowing that we have another 5 years ahead of us of, where those kinds of things may happen. If that's the reality that we're living in, is there something we can do to try to think about, the Y responded, tried to put on a program, so just something we can do as a district to think through what options might be for alternative learning days. So that's a suggestion.
I thought that was a really good
Yeah,
idea.
it's like COVID, exactly.
Those can get approved though.
Well, yeah, but I mean, the need is obviously different, but it's still, there is a need here. Okay, so policy, on track with the 3-year cycle.
Go ahead, let's say.
We did it. Yeah, so the fist bumps, I think, are about calling out any policies that maybe we've recently revisited or we've recently reviewed, but that we'd like to revisit. Specifically, social media and wellness were 2 that we specified. And then the FEFI's policy obviously is actively under review, so it sounds like perhaps a reemergence of the working group. Would that be summer retreat? How would we go about formally?
My thought, we're going to share there, but I don't have information yet. Next thing that say that all, maybe this spring, where we're going, after going in the summer, is where I was thinking, I don't know how that will be, especially with some shifting on the committee, to start something now, but otherwise, we can consider it, but they might already started this day.
Yeah, I mean, I'd be happy to participate because I was in your role last year, and it was tricky because it was ahead of the new policy being rolled out, but I agree, I don't know how much we could do this year, other than maybe, yeah, no, I agree, I think it's probably summer. Then you're through at once, too. Yeah.
Travis.
Double mic?
On each side.
Yeah, so I think summer is good. Anything for anybody else that we haven't called out? That's good. This one, okay. Okay, goal 3, strengthen trust and engagement with families and the community. We will keep the community informed through monthly newsletters, website updates, and other communication initiatives that are accessible to all. Increase community engagement opportunities, forums, surveys, listening sessions. Track committee appointments and ensure engagement opportunities are accessible. Review superintendent updates on safety initiatives and provide feedback and communicate with the community. So skipping down to our responses to these things. So for community improvement suggestions, this has come up a couple times. I think usually when there are sort of heightened or sensitive matters where we have, an outpouring of emails from people or people coming to public comment, and the rules are, sort of what they are, certainly for public comment, where this is not like a dialogue. Is there a way for us to think about, still in the meeting, once public comment is closed out, where we can sort of just acknowledge, the energy in the room or the feelings, validate where people are, not responding specifically to anybody in particular in the room or even specific comments, trying to keep it thematic, but just an acknowledgement of, and I think some of those things we have visibility into when we know certain sensitive things are happening and we're responding to them, and sometimes we maybe don't, but just to try to think through if there's room to be intentional about, for us to have a voice and for us to show people we care about you, we see you, we hear you, in a way where we can't respond in a dialogue during open comment.
The one thing that most of those topics are on our agenda, but they show up like an hour later. And so even just the logistics of make that the first thing on the agenda. So it flows from the citizens' comments into our discussion on the same topic, I think would accomplish what you're talking about. It's not a major change for us because we discuss them anyway, but they all walk out. We can't discuss any of it until an hour later, and it looks clumsy. So I think even just little things like that would make a big difference.
Yeah, I think similarly in terms of emails, sometimes, and I think the volume it's hard when the volume is enormous, and you want to acknowledge people and say, again, we see you, we hear you, but sort of are there opportunities for us to give more robust responses sometimes, especially when I think sometimes when emails have questions embedded, and it's not just someone telling us how they feel about something, which of course then we can say, thank you, we receive it, we take it under advisement as we do. But if there are specific questions, are there ways for us to kind of respond in a more in-depth way? And then I think also the sort of who's on first. So sometimes, like if someone sends us an email and it's, the response we see is, this would be something that Dr. Blake should speak on, and that's been forwarded to him. But then we don't see what that follow-up looks like and what that communication is to the community member. So if there's sort of some way to kind of close the loop on communication on that kind of thing, so there's a little more visibility into what the follow-up looks like. Proactive community engagement. I think this was one where we all felt that there was more we could do. So surveys was something that came up where, could we work with school site councils or building administrators to send out, maybe it's once a year or twice a year, and those could be standardized in some way where we're starting to get sort of data that comes in year over year. Something like that, where we're actually giving people the opportunity to send us information. It can be anonymized. I think we'd have to think through probably policy around that or whatever that would look like, but something where we can be intentional about trying to get feedback from people. And then we also talked about trying to attend either Fry's meetings every now and again, school site council meetings every night, now and again, to get a better sense for what are the themes in the buildings, you know, for athletics, for participation, for arts, for any of the ongoing things that those groups are talking about. And then also inviting people from those groups to come and present to us. School Advisory Council, so for 2 years, I mean, vapes, obviously we've responded, we've put machines in those. Like, I think there have been sort of ups and downs in terms of how that's going with the students. The overall cleanliness and food are those three things for the last 2 years are like, that's the main themes at every meeting. And so just getting, you know, I mean, the student rep is active in providing that feedback to us, but I guess just what's happening there, you know, is there more that we can do? Is there anything else to see there? We wanted to call that group out as a valuable place for us to, you know, have connection in the community. Boosters, youth sports, I mean, it's all applicable. Can we go to them and can they come to us? Was essentially, can we be more intentional about both of those things? For safety, I think the admin is doing a great job across the board, all in your newsletters and in each of the school newsletters. The school committee newsletters also highlight safety in schools. And we just talked about, again, reiterated the need for some kind of a contingency plan for facilities. Anything else?
No, is there
Okay. All right. Goal 4, foster a collaborative, reflective, and inclusive district culture. We will review and approve superintendent goals by November 2025, complete superintendent evaluation by June 2026 using the DESI rubric, conduct mid-year and end-of-year school committee self-assessments. We're a little late here. And support effective onboarding and progress monitoring for building administrators. Obviously, we're going right into the superintendent's goal review. When we wrote this, we were obviously actively working on this mid-year self-assessment. And then the third was sort of, I think this is a tricky one, and we'll need to lean on you for your, you know, kind of, how do we get this information? You know, how do we understand what your process is for these things, just so we're informed on what you're doing? Anything else for anybody? Yeah.
maybe just in closing, so no, not for this, but maybe just in closing, I think we've really like taken a pen to the goals each year. This would be a good one to just, they should essentially stay the same. There might be additions based on key things going on, but don't take all the time to reset the goals. Like, we don't finalize them until like into the fall. Like, this is good as it is going into the new school year. Like, don't burn the time to go through it. That's right. Yeah, you could say these are our goals for the next, annual goals for the next 3 years, and just assume it's basically the same, and so don't take the time. That was my only just thought going into, like, closing out this year, then going into next one, just as an observation.
Yeah, and I think we talked about that last year. You know,
Yeah.
this was a pretty big shift. And so the idea was, we knew that it would take a little time to think about, like, how even this, right, our
Yeah.
process for when we were going through, I was like, where do I put the notes? Like, how are we gonna format what is this conversation gonna look like? How do we actually assess ourselves and make sure we're holding ourselves accountable? So a lot of it's new. So I agree, we don't,
The timing of it,
yeah,
to your point, I mean, this is all, you know, a lot of this was this mid-year review. The year starts in July, we're in February. We didn't approve any of our goals until November, so the whole timing sequence is off.
yeah.
So, and I think that's gonna be reflected in my reporting out is in that, just overall, a lot of things are coming up, and I think we may need to adjust the timing of when they are.
Yep.
Some of them are time sensitive. I mean, for me to do graduation report in May isn't gonna do us any good, right? It's not timely. The data presentations are happening during, throughout the year. There's a lot of things coming up in the next 3 or 4 I think we have 5 or 6 school committee meetings left, and there'll be a lot of reports because we've sort of been kicking the can down the road with some of our agenda items and some of the reports just because of the volume of stuff that we've been doing. So I think we just need to fine tune that next year.
Yeah. Good.
Yeah,
Okay.
nicely done.
Jump into mine, what did I do with them? So similarly, I think just to continue the conversation, a lot of my benchmarks and evidence are, reports that have to be presented to the school committee, which, I certainly have been in the process of doing. The equity report last week, or last meeting, and this one. The extracurricular report, let me see, bounce back and forth here, but we have, right now, at the May 7th, was our intention to do all of these on May 7th? Or is that just a placeholder for?
That was the date that didn't have a lot of other things on it, so it's kind of where they made sense. I mean, we can continue to tweak it, but it's where a lot of them
So
fell.
field trip rubric, we're looking at April 16th, and then the student services information, the retention trends, DEI work, those are all going to be done May 7th. And, we might be able to push off the safety update and extracurricular participation to the 21st, maybe not. I'm just looking at that agenda planning. Does everybody have access to our agenda planning?
I sent it.
Okay, all right, okay. So in terms of the goals, I think just, projecting forward, the goal 1 I anticipate will be met and presented, as indicated. Goal 2 around management and operations, similar to the school committee, the budget's been presented. We worked collaboratively with the town manager and finance director for the 5-year capital plan. We are on target or ahead of the game with any of our MSBA reporting. And then the policies are certainly in play. The athletic policy is done and passed. The updated FEFI's policy. We're making adjustments to the wellness policy. The only one that we really haven't done much with is the sustainability policy. In terms of benchmark and evidence, we've got an approved budget. We've got, based on the conversation that I heard from tonight, we have an approved capital plan from the select board. MSB updates have been provided. I've included them in my superintendent reports. And all of our policies, as we were joking before, we're actually finished for the year with our work, finishing out the cycle early, so. Goal 3, the family and community engagement, continuing to do my weekly updates and all my special notices and communications with the community through SMORE. It was interesting. I had an interesting experience. Just share real quick when I was on vacation, and I tried to make the snow call that morning. I couldn't get into one of the systems from out of the country because of the technology, so I actually had to do it one way, send it to Laura, and then Laura had to get it out on S'more. Actually, I was able to do S'more. I wasn't able to do Blackboard. Blackboard locked me out. So I was able to create the message and get it squared away, and then just had to send it because I couldn't get into the system. Where are we? Action plans as appropriate. Annual safety update. I'll be providing those reports to the school committee. And then the last one was the submission of and approval of the goals, which we've done. Continue to work with the administrators around their goals and providing support. DEI team continues to meet monthly. And I support your mid-year eval. End of year self-assessment. Tongue in cheek, I'm not sure what I'm supposed to do with that piece. Support the committee's mid-year and end of year self-assessment. Unless that's providing the documentation that you've just asked for in your goals.
Yes.
Yes?
That's
Is that
how
what that
I
is?
read it, yeah.
Yeah. So at this point, I think I'm on target to meet them by the end of the year.
Questions or comments for Dr. Blake? I'm glad you brought up the sustainability policy because that's the second year that it's actually been in effect, and there's not a lot in there that's not being done, but there are pieces that have not been implemented.
Take a closer look at it.
Just a couple questions about the benchmarks and evidence for goal 1. There are
Yep.
3 here,
Back up.
yeah, that we haven't talked about that look awesome. Maybe you could just talk about 4, 5, and 6.
Yep, so the field trip rubric will be done for the next school committee meeting. We hope to have something for that.
Have we talked about that? What is that?
So, yes, we did. So the idea was to look at all of the different field trips that we run here. Primarily the overnight field trips. And then part of it was looking at the schedule. This all initially came out of the scheduling because we've been doing a lot of field trips through paying grants. We do the England trip every 4 years. We've had other opportunities for our kids to go, the robotics club, the racing challenge, all these trips that are either within the country or out of the country. And we wanted to lay them out to see when they were happening and kids involved and how often they went, so that we could start to see if there's a pattern. Like, we know that every 4 years there's an England trip that's been happening for I don't know how many years. And then the second piece was trying to look at, okay, so how do we determine whether the trips should be supported? Are they educational? Are they just for fun? Are they part of a course? And then I think that the last piece that we haven't talked a whole lot about, but was a concern more recently, was when Maggie brought the trip to Guatemala. And just the whole notion of safety and what that was going to look like.
It is also in our goals. I'm just looking at them. That's
sorry?
That is specific in our goals, and we just haven't so. Great.
And then I have to do I'm doing walkthroughs with Tracy and the building principals, and those summaries have to come before the school committee. And 6, if there's any remedial plans, I don't know that there will be, but
Okay. So, in summary, it seems like we feel we're in a good place with both sets of goals. I'm not hearing any major concerns. All right. Next item. Oh, boy. Town meeting warrant review. Okay, so we are going to run through quick. The purpose of us running through will be trying to identify where we need more information, not to get into the nitty-gritty. We're going to vote at our next meeting. I sent out the dates that the select board and the finance committee are going to vote, so I'm glad that we'll be able to review their meetings, which will help, inform our conversations. So, let's begin. So I'm going to just consent calendar. Questions? Okay, I'm going to keep rolling. Stop me if needed. Finance committee election. Not much we can do with that one right now. Okay. The municipal budget. School budget. Whittier budget. Essex Tech. I want people to correct me if I'm wrong, and I know Jen usually does it, but I thought we had come to a place where we had, or I know I felt this way, and I want to see if this is the school committee's perspective, that the select board should be presenting it, and I see right here it's assigned to the school committee.
Yeah, we did talk about that. It was going to be select board. Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, so I will send Charlie a message on that. Okay, writing myself a note. Okay. Stabilization, town stabilization, capital funds, OPEB, annual capital plan, water system. All right, we're cruising here.
Did you say water system, waste?
Yep.
system? So is that something that we need to vote on?
I think we've talked about it before.
Right.
Like the schools, I mean,
we use
the
it.
quality of water
Right.
affects the schools,
Yeah.
so.
Right.
And I think where we landed last time is that any member who doesn't want to vote on something can abstain. And if we don't have a quorum for members who want to vote on something, then it would nullify, any recommendation.
Yeah.
Okay. Borrowing to supplement public safety building construction. And I know that's, I think, going to be covered again at bean counting. And then, it's a long one, Article 14. Okay. Article 15, Government Studies Committee, recommendation to govern the electric light department.
Can I get back to you on this? I
Yeah.
have, but have not read what we got from the Government Studies Committee, just, should I have, I don't know if, I don't know if I have questions that it's helpful to have someone come talk to us about it yet.
So this petitioner had emailed us, and I forwarded everybody, like asking if we had questions. Would we like them to come and present at the next meeting? Or
That's where, for me, I
to be
don't know.
determined?
Yeah, I'm not suggesting yes yet, but
Okay.
once I review it, I'll let you know.
Okay, I guess maybe within the next couple days
Yeah,
or
that's what I was
so,
thinking.
because
Yeah,
I
yeah,
want
that's
to,
fine.
give them enough time if we do want them to come.
Yeah, and if they're just simple questions, I'll ask them directly.
Okay, then maybe I'll say that as well, that
Yeah, I can
I
let you know by
just
this
went
week
off,
through
because
the
now
end
that
of the weekend,
you all
yeah.
have their email, okay. All right, then Article 16, beach stickers. And Article 17, government.
Just a question on that one. I don't remember seeing the financial impact of that. Do you know if the select board had it?
I don't. I imagine that they will be discussing it when they vote, but I don't know right now.
If I
can
remember
email
right,
Charlie and ask
the
him.
finance, in the article in the local news, the finance committee supported the proposal, so I don't know if that's just. Yeah, you read.
Well, they haven't formally voted yet, so I don't know. So, we'll see. Yeah. Okay. And then another petition about form of government and the dam. Okay, so it sounds like we're going to take questions for Article 15, can direct at the petitioner or request a presentation if we need that. So I'd say it's Thursday. Is it reasonable to say by Monday? Let me know if okay. So I'll plan to reach out by Monday.
Does the school committee vote on every single one of these? We have a school committee position on these, or no? I can't remember from the town meetings before.
What's happened historically is that the school committee as an elected body has the opportunity to weigh in on all articles in more recent, and always has. And I think in recent years, there's been question about whether or not we need to if they didn't impact the school. And
So what we landed
Diana
on,
was-
yeah, is that if people don't want to vote, you can abstain from any vote, but that we would have the opportunity to weigh in on everything. We'll see how it goes. Next meeting. Okay. Any other questions on the warrant? Okay, I'm seeing none. Next is,
Oh, sorry, I was just going to say procedurally, so you know too, that usually when we vote on the ones that, where we're presenting, we decide who
yes.
will present those.
Right.
When's that? Is that our next meeting?
And in doing that, unless it's the school budget article or something directly that we put on, it's usually just going up to the mic and saying the school committee supports this article 7-0 or 6-1, whatever the vote is.
Okay, so policy review. This is the last batch. There were no updates to any of these policies because we are so on our game. We reviewed them all fairly recently, and now that we reviewed them again, they're still fresh and pertinent. And we had a question on one of them that Dr. Blake ran by legal, and they said, yep, the language still sticks. So are there any questions? I know these got dropped in somewhat recently, so if people want to take a minute, I'm happy to do that.
Maybe, if you want to do a, because we didn't see them before.
Okay.
I usually try to review, but I didn't.
Yeah. Do you want to just take a couple minutes
Yeah,
to
is that
look through? Okay.
I don't know. I mean, if there's,
Yeah, let's take time. I don't want you to vote on something that you're not comfortable with. Yeah.
but it's also hard to, in a couple minutes, like digest it all.
They're
so I don't know if it's
short.
like an over- Okay.
They're all short, but, whatever people are comfortable with. If
This doesn't lock them forever. If you wanted to, we could vote them, and then if you reviewed them after, abstain, review them, and in the next meeting, bring up any questions on them.
Yeah. Yeah, that's fine.
So you don't feel the pressure of reading right
Yeah.
now while we watch
for
you.
quorum.
Where's that?
There's a folder,
Okay.
there's a specific policy folder in the
The-
folder.
Oh, I see,
Oh.
okay.
I think it's Wednesday. Let me see.
Should, yeah, that first, yeah.
Thank you. Yeah. The 8th at 6:30.
Thank you.
I have a question about the community use of school facilities. Is this just for like events and stuff like that? Like permission for the use of facilities must be obtained through the office of the superintendent? That's not like on a Saturday, someone wants to go play at the playground.
Right, no, it's like the
This
gym.
is like an event kind of a thing.
Yeah.
Like, okay. In the interest of time, it's probably better to do what, what Sasha said.
I mean, only if people are comfortable. So I'm hearing one is not comfortable voting. Is anybody not comfortable voting?
You want to just hold it till next meeting?
What's that?
Do you want to just hold it till the next meeting?
Do you want to just hold it to the next meeting?
I'm just trying to read the energy in the room.
Well, Jenny, we're on policy, so we're good. So I guess it's on you two, but,
They're really
Yeah,
good.
you are. I'm good.
okay.
Good, okay.
Yeah, we can always come back
We
next week.
can
if-
always
if
come
you
back.
find something.
Policies
Yeah,
can
they're not
be
locked.
Yeah.
updated anytime. Just really excited to get these done. Okay, so is there a motion to approve the policies as presented?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Sasha, second by Jenny. Further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? And
Abstain.
abstained. I was like, what's the word? Thank you. Okay, so 401, motion passes. All right. Any new business? Okay. Consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented?
So moved.
Moved by Jenny,
Second.
by Sasha. Further discussion? All in favor? Motion passes. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
Moved by
Second.
Jenny. Second by Sasha. All in favor?
Oh, you're gonna be faster than that.
In favor? Okay, adjourned at 10:34.
Good night, Ipswich, 10:34.